Imagine yourself walking down a long, dimly lit corridor. The air is still, and the only sound is the echo of your own footsteps. Along this corridor are countless doors, each one closed but not locked. As you pass, a door creaks open on its own, and from within, a scene from your life plays out. A memory you thought was long buried. It might be the sting of a harsh word from childhood, the flush of shame from a public failure, the heavy silence of a relationship that ended badly. You try to walk on, to move forward, but the pull of that open door is immense. You find yourself drawn inside, reliving the moment, feeling the old pain, the regret, the anger, as if it were happening all over again. You spend minutes, maybe hours, in that room of the past, before finally pulling yourself away, only to have another door open a few steps later. This corridor is not a place of brick and mortar. It is the architecture of your own mind. And this journey, this constant, involuntary pulling back into the rooms of the past, is a silent struggle for millions of us. We believe our stress comes from the pressures of today and our anxiety from the uncertainties of tomorrow. But so often, the heaviest chains we carry are the ones that bind us to yesterday. We are held captive by the ghosts of what could have been, by the echoes of words we wish we had never said or never heard. This invisible prison shapes our present. It makes us defensive, fearful, and hesitant to trust. It prevents us from being truly available to the beauty and reality of the one moment we ever truly have, which is this moment, right now. But what if there was another way to walk this hall? What if you could learn to pass those open doors, to acknowledge the scene playing out within, but without being compelled to enter? What if you could look upon those memories, not with the sharp pain of re-injury, but with a sense of calm understanding and even compassion? The goal is not to brick up the doors or to pretend the corridor doesn't exist. The past cannot be erased. The goal is to change your relationship with it. The ancient wisdom of Buddhism, refined over thousands of years, offers a profound and practical path to do just that. Through the practice of mindfulness, it provides a key, not to lock the doors of the past, but to unlock ourselves from their grip, allowing us to finally walk freely into the open space of the present and to discover the peace that has been waiting for us there all along. To begin our journey of healing, we must first look unflinchingly at the nature of the wound itself. In the Buddhist tradition, the starting point for all understanding is a single, profound concept, a word from the ancient Pali language, dukkha. This word is most often translated as suffering. But this simple translation doesn't capture its full depth. To translate dukkha merely as suffering is to imagine a life of constant, overt agony, which is not what most of us experience. Instead, think of dukkha as a pervasive, underlying sense of unsatisfactoriness. It's the subtle but persistent feeling that things are not quite right. It is the low-grade, chronic stress that hums beneath the surface of our days. It's the boredom we feel when things are calm, and the anxiety we feel when they are not. It's the disappointment when a joyful moment ends, and the ache of wanting things to be different than they are. It is the inherent wobble in the wheel of life, a slight off-centeredness that we can feel on even the smoothest of roads. This acknowledgement of dukkha is not a pessimistic declaration that life is miserable. It is not a judgment or a condemnation. It is a diagnosis. It is the first of what the Buddha called the Four Noble Truths. And like any good doctor, the Buddha first named the ailment before prescribing the cure. To see and accept the reality of dukkha is a moment of profound clarity and relief. It means that the unease you feel is not a personal failure. It does not mean you are broken or that you are navigating life incorrectly. It means you are human. This subtle friction, this feeling of being fundamentally unsettled, is a shared, universal characteristic of a mind that has not yet been trained to see reality as it is. It is the baseline condition from which our healing begins. So where does this pervasive unsatisfactoriness come from? A great deal of it is generated by our relationship with the past. Our mind, in its untrained state, is a master time traveler, but it has one critical flaw. It almost exclusively travels to destinations of its own creation, bringing back souvenirs of pain. It does this in two primary ways: by clinging to what was pleasant and by resisting what was painful. We might think that only painful memories cause suffering, but attachment to joyful ones can be just as insidious. Think of a time in your past you consider a golden age. Perhaps it was a particular relationship, a time in your career, or a period of youthful freedom. The memory itself is beautiful, but the mind clings to it. It holds that memory up as a standard against which the present is constantly measured and almost always found lacking. The present moment, with all its simple, quiet reality, can never compete with a memory that has been polished and perfected by time. And so, a beautiful past becomes a source of present-day dukkha, a constant reminder of what we no longer have, creating a subtle ache of nostalgia and loss. The more obvious source of suffering, however, is our clinging to the painful past. Here, the mind doesn't just remember, it relives. This is a critical distinction. A memory is not a neutral file retrieved from a database. It is not a factual, objective recording of an event. A memory is a story, and our mind is a tireless storyteller. Every time it tells the story of a past hurt, a failure, or a moment of shame, it adds new layers of emotional color. The original event may be long gone, but the story is alive and well, playing on a loop in the theater of our mind. And for our nervous system, there is little difference between a real threat and a vividly imagined one. When you dredge up a painful memory, your body responds. Your heart rate might increase, your muscles might tense, your stomach might clench. The same neurochemical cascade of stress hormones that occurred during the original event can be triggered all over again. In a very real sense, you are forcing yourself to suffer the same event over and over. The past is not haunting you. You are choosing, unconsciously, to haunt yourself with the past. To illustrate this, the Buddha told a simple but incredibly powerful parable, the story of the two arrows. He said that from time to time, every person in the world will be struck by an arrow. This first arrow represents the unavoidable, painful events of life. It is the experience of sickness, of loss, of being unfairly criticized. It is the pain of an accident, a betrayal, or a deep disappointment. These things are a part of the fabric of human existence. No amount of wisdom or good fortune can make you entirely immune to these first arrows. They will come, and when they strike, they will cause pain. This is a simple fact of life. But, the Buddha continued, an unwise person, upon being struck by the first arrow, allows a second arrow to be shot directly into the same wound. This second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. It is the torrent of thoughts that says, "Why me? This is not fair. I don't deserve this." It is the blame we cast upon others, the resentment that we harbor and rehearse in our minds. It is the self-criticism that says, "This is all my fault. I am a failure. I should have known better." It is the fear that catastrophizes the situation. This is the end of everything. I will never recover from this. This cascade of thinking, this mental proliferation, is the second arrow. The first arrow causes pain. The second arrow causes suffering, or dukkha. The wound from the first arrow might be clean and, with time, could heal. But the second arrow, and the third, and the fourth, which we shoot into ourselves, are what poison the wound, causing it to fester for months, years, or even a lifetime. Now, let us connect this directly to the burden of the past, the painful event that happened years ago, the betrayal, the mistake, the loss. That was the first arrow. It happened, and it was painful, but that moment is gone. The arrow has already struck and fallen away. The initial pain is a historical fact. However, every time you ruminate on that event, every time you replay the scene in your mind, every time you feel the hot flush of anger or the cold grip of regret, you are picking up a second arrow and shooting it into yourself. Right now, in the present moment, you are taking a phantom from a world that no longer exists and giving it the power to wound you today. The original perpetrator of your pain may be long gone, but you have now become your own tormentor, diligently ensuring that the suffering continues. This is the echo of suffering. The original sound has faded, but the echoes, created by the walls of our own minds, reverberate endlessly. This is the heart of dukkha as it relates to our past. It is the fundamental misunderstanding that allows old pain to feel new, that makes a memory feel like a current event. We suffer not because of what happened to us, but because we continually re-inflict what happened upon ourselves through our thoughts. We are caught in a feedback loop where a memory triggers a painful feeling, and the painful feeling triggers more memories and thoughts, creating a seemingly endless cycle of misery. Understanding this is the first crucial step toward freedom. It is not about denying that the first arrow was painful. It was. Your pain is valid, but freedom lies in recognizing that you have the power to stop shooting the second arrow. You have the ability to notice the storytelling mind and to not believe its every dramatic tale. This is not easy, as it is a deeply ingrained habit, but it is possible. By understanding the mechanism of dukkha, by seeing how we ourselves perpetuate our suffering, we shift from being a passive victim of our past to an active participant in our present healing. We see that the prison door has been unlocked the entire time. Our task, then, is to understand why we are so reluctant to walk out. We must investigate the nature of the past itself and question the very ground it seems to stand on. We have seen how our suffering, our dukkha, is not caused by the past itself, but by our mind's relentless habit of clinging to it, of replaying its stories, and re-experiencing its pain through the mechanism of the second arrow. This leads to a crucial question. What is it, exactly, that we are clinging to? The Buddhist answer to this is found in another foundational concept, the truth of anicca, or impermanence. This is the understanding that everything, without exception, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is fixed, nothing is permanent, and nothing is separate from the ceaseless river of change. To truly grasp the meaning of anicca is to be handed the key that unlocks the chains of the past. Look around you. Look within you. You will not find a single thing that is immune to this universal law. The great mountains seem solid and eternal, but they are slowly being ground down by wind and rain, their dust washing out to sea. Stars are born in fiery explosions, and, over billions of years, they cool and die. The seasons turn in a reliable cycle, each one yielding to the next. The very cells in your body are a testament to this constant flow. You are not the same person, physically, that you were 7 years ago. Your cells have died and been replaced. Your skin, your bones, your organs are in a perpetual state of regeneration and decay. The person who experienced that painful event in the past literally does not exist in the same physical form today. This flow is even more rapid and obvious in the realm of our own minds. Think of a thought. Where does it come from? It appears, seemingly from nowhere. It lingers for a moment, and then it vanishes. Think of an emotion. A wave of joy can wash over you, triggered by a piece of music or a kind word. It crests, and then it subsides. A flash of anger can arise, hot and intense, and then, if left alone, it too will dissipate. Our inner world is like the weather, a dynamic, ever-changing system of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, none of them meant to be permanent fixtures. The mind we have in this moment is different from the one we had an hour ago, and it will be different again an hour from now. Now, apply this profound truth to the past that burdens you, the event that you hold in your memory, the argument, the loss, the failure is over. It has completely and utterly ceased to exist. Its moment in time has passed. It is as gone as the breath you took a minute ago, or the sound of a bell after it has finished ringing. What you are holding on to is not the event itself, but an imprint, a mental echo of the event. You are clinging to a ghost. The suffering you feel now is not caused by the event, which is gone, but by your insistence, in this present moment, on giving life to its phantom. You are treating a memory, which is just a pattern of thought and feeling appearing now, as if it were a solid, unchanging reality. This is the core of the struggle. It is a futile fight against the fundamental nature of the universe. It is like trying to build a permanent dam in the middle of a flowing river. The river of time will always win. Our dukkha, our unsatisfactoriness, is the friction generated by this fight. We suffer when we try to make the impermanent permanent. When we experience a moment of great happiness, we grasp at it. We want it to last forever. We take a mental snapshot and wish we could live inside it. When the moment inevitably passes, as it must, we feel a sense of loss and disappointment. This is suffering born from resisting anicca. Conversely, when we experience a painful memory or a difficult emotion, we resist it. We want it to be gone forever. We push it away, we suppress it, we distract ourselves from it. But this very act of resistance is what gives it strength. In fighting it, we are engaging with it, feeding it our energy, and cementing its place in our minds. This too is suffering born from resisting anicca. We are trying to hold back the tide with our bare hands. There is a beautiful Zen story that illustrates this principle perfectly. A Zen master had a favorite teacup. It was exquisite, a masterpiece of craftsmanship, and he cherished it. He would often tell his students, "I treat this teacup as if it is already broken." He enjoyed its beauty, the way it felt in his hands, the way it held the warm tea. But in the back of his mind, he held the gentle understanding that its nature was to be fragile, and that one day it would inevitably be broken. By accepting its impermanent nature, he was free from the anxiety of its potential loss. His acceptance of its future brokenness allowed him to fully and completely appreciate its present wholeness. One day, a student accidentally knocked the teacup from a shelf, and it shattered into 100 pieces on the floor. The students were horrified, expecting the master to be angry or distraught. But the master simply looked down at the pieces and said, calmly and without surprise, "Of course, that painful event from your past is the already broken cup. The argument already happened. The loss is complete. The mistake was made. The shattering is over." Our suffering comes from staring at the broken pieces on the floor of our memory and endlessly wishing the cup were still whole. We mentally try to glue the pieces back together. We curse the person who knocked it over, We berate ourselves for placing it so close to the edge. We resist the reality that it is broken. Liberation, the Zen master showed, comes from looking at the shattered reality of the past and having the wisdom and courage to say, "Of course, that happened. It is over." Seeing impermanence is not a cause for despair or nihilism. It can sound bleak to say that nothing lasts, but within this truth lies the seed of incredible hope. Because if everything is impermanent, then your pain is also impermanent. The grief that feels like it will last forever is impermanent. The shame that feels etched into your very being is impermanent. The anxiety that grips you in the middle of the night is impermanent. The difficult state you find yourself in right now is not a life sentence. It is a passing weather pattern. It too will change. This is the ultimate permission slip to let go. Why hold on so tightly to something that is, by its very nature, slipping away? Why anchor yourself to a storm cloud when you are the sky through which it passes? Accepting anicca means surrendering to the flow of reality rather than fighting against it. It means learning to dance with change rather than being crushed by it. It's a shift from clinging to appreciating, from resisting to allowing. When we see that the past event is gone, that it was as fleeting as any other moment, its power over us begins to wane. We see it for what it is, a memory, a thought form arising in the present, as temporary as a soap bubble. We can observe it without being swept away by it. But this leads to a deeper, more subtle question. If the event is gone, and my body is always changing, and my thoughts are always changing, then who is this I that feels so permanently defined and scarred by what happened? Who is the one who claims this pain as mine? To answer this, we must journey even deeper into the heart of reality, to explore the most radical and liberating truth of all. We have journeyed through two profound truths. First, the reality of dukkha, the underlying unsatisfactoriness that comes from a mind clinging and resisting. Second, the law of anicca, the universal impermanence that shows us the very things we cling to are like smoke, forever shifting and dissolving. We see that the painful event in the past is gone, a broken cup that cannot be unbroken. Yet, a powerful sense of I remains. A voice inside insists, but I was the one who was hurt. I am the one who carries this scar. My life was changed by that event. This feeling of a solid, continuous self who owns the pain is the final and deepest root of our entanglement with the past. To gently pull up this root, we must investigate the most subtle and liberating of the Buddhist teachings, anatta, or no, self. At first, this concept can sound frightening or nihilistic. No self? Does that mean I don't exist? This is a misunderstanding. Anatta is not a declaration that you are nothing. It is a profound insight that you are not a thing. It is the realization that there is no fixed, independent, unchanging core, no little me sitting in a control room behind your eyes, pulling the levers of your thoughts and actions. The self that we feel so strongly, the one we are so determined to defend and define, is, upon closer inspection, not a solid entity, but a dynamic and shimmering process. It is more like a verb than a noun. To understand this, Buddhism invites us to look at what we call ourself and deconstruct it into its component parts. These are often called the 5 aggregates, or the 5 heaps. Think of them as 5 bundles of processes that, when clinging together, create the illusion of a single, solid self. The first is form. Our physical body, which we have already seen, is in a constant state of flux, a river of changing cells. The second is feelings, the spectrum of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations that wash through us at every moment, as fleeting as the weather. The third is perception, the faculty that identifies what our senses encounter, labeling things as a tree, a sound, a threat. This too is constantly changing based on our state of mind and context. The fourth, and for our purposes the most crucial, is mental formations. This bundle includes all our thoughts, our opinions, our moods, our habits, our prejudices, and most importantly, our stories. It is the relentless narrator in our heads, the voice that says, "I am a failure," or "I am a victim of my past." Finally, the fifth is consciousness, the raw faculty of knowing or awareness that allows the other four bundles to be experienced. It flickers from sight to sound to thought, arising and passing away with each new object of attention. Our suffering arises from a case of mistaken identity. We grasp onto one or more of these bundles of changing processes and say, "This is me, this is mine." We identify with our changing body. We identify with our fleeting emotions. And most powerfully, we identify with our mental formations, with our stories. When the thought, "I am a person who was deeply wronged," arises, we don't see it as just a thought, a transient mental event. We believe it. We fuse with it. That thought becomes our identity. I becomes the story of being wronged. This story, which is just a pattern of impermanent thoughts, then feels like the very core of our being. This is the prison. We have mistaken a fleeting narrative for a permanent truth about who we are. The ancient Greeks told a parable that beautifully illuminates this idea. The ship of Theseus. Theseus, a great hero, had a famous ship. After his death, the people of Athens preserved it in their harbor as a memorial. But as the centuries passed, the wooden planks of the ship began to rot. To preserve it, they replaced one rotten plank with a new one, then another, and another. Over many years, this process continued until eventually, not a single one of the original planks remained. This led the philosophers to ask a profound question. Is this still the ship of Theseus? If it has none of its original parts, can it be the same ship? Now imagine a second ship was built using all the old, discarded planks. Which one is the true ship of Theseus? There is no easy answer, because the concept of a fixed, unchanging ship is an illusion. The ship was always a temporary collection of parts. You are the ship of Theseus. The you that existed 10 years ago was a specific collection of physical and mental planks, certain body, certain beliefs, certain emotions, certain stories. But time has passed. Every plank has been replaced. Your body is different. Your knowledge is different. Your experiences have shaped new thoughts and feelings. When a painful memory arises from that time, a memory of the old ship being damaged, who is it that feels the pain now? To believe that the pain of that old configuration is fundamentally your pain today is to believe that the new ship should still feel the splinters of the old, discarded wood. The pain is real, but its owner is a phantom. The trauma happened to a collection of mind and body processes that no longer exists in the same form. To grasp this is to depersonalize the pain. It's no longer my trauma. It becomes simply trauma. It's no longer my shame. It becomes the feeling of shame. This small linguistic shift represents a monumental leap in consciousness. It takes the me out of the equation, and without a me to cling to the pain loses its anchor. It becomes an impersonal energy that can flow through you and, ultimately, out of you. You stop being the protagonist in a tragic story and become the space in which the story is being observed. You are not the clouds or the rain or the storm of your inner world. You are the sky. A storm may rage, but the sky is not the storm. The sky is the vast, open, accommodating space in which the storm takes place. The storm cannot damage the sky. The darkest clouds cannot stain it. The sky simply allows the weather to be what it is, knowing that it will, in time, pass. You are not your story. You are the silent, spacious awareness that is aware of the story. This realization is the antidote to the feeling of being permanently broken or defined by your past. If there is no fixed, solid self, then you are not stuck being the person you were yesterday. You are not your diagnosis, your history, or your mistakes. These are just labels for past collections of components. In every single moment, there is the potential for a new configuration to arise. You are a process, a flow, a dance of becoming. This is radical freedom. It means that change is not only possible, it is your fundamental nature. These three truths, dukkha, anicca, and anattare, not articles of faith to be blindly believed. They are not complex philosophical arguments to be won. They are descriptions of reality, invitations to look at your own experience with a new clarity. Believing that your past is impermanent is one thing. To directly experience a painful memory as a fleeting vibration of energy in the present moment is another. Believing that there is no solid self is an interesting idea. To directly experience yourself not as a thing, but as a spacious, open awareness is life-altering. To make this shift from intellectual understanding to lived, embodied wisdom, we need a practical tool. We need a method for turning our attention inward, not with judgment or analysis, but with a gentle, precise, and radical honesty. This tool, this method of direct seeing, is the practice of mindfulness. It is the way we begin to experience these truths for ourselves, and in doing so, begin our true journey home. Having journeyed into the profound philosophical heart of suffering and freedom, understanding dukkha, anicca, and anatta, we arrive at a critical turning point. These truths, while illuminating, can feel abstract, like maps of a distant land. The question that naturally arises is, how do I get there? How do I move from intellectually understanding these concepts to actually living them, to feeling their liberating power in my own life? The answer, the vehicle for this entire journey, is the practice of sati, a word most commonly translated as mindfulness. This is not another complex idea to grasp, but a simple, practical skill to be cultivated. It is the art of waking up to our own lives. So what is mindfulness? The most straightforward definition, one that has brought this ancient practice into the modern world, is this. Mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack this simple sentence, for within it lies a complete path to transforming our relationship with the past. First, paying attention, on purpose. Our attention, in its untrained state, is like a wild puppy. It runs after every passing car, sniffs at every interesting scent, and is pulled in 1,000 different directions by thoughts, sounds, and sensations. We don't choose where our attention goes. It is simply hijacked, most often by the powerful gravity of past regrets or future anxieties. Mindfulness is the gentle but firm act of taking hold of the leash. It is the intentional decision to place your awareness somewhere specific, to become the master of your own attention, rather than its slave. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your own mind. Second, in the present moment. This is the destination of our purposeful attention. Why the present moment? Because it is the only place life ever actually occurs. The past is a collection of memories, which are thoughts happening now. The future is a collection of projections, which are also thoughts happening now. The only time we are ever truly alive, the only time we can feel, learn, or heal, is right here, in this unfolding instant. To be mindful is to arrive fully in your own life, to show up for the one moment you actually have, for a mind trapped in the prison of the past. Learning to anchor itself in the present is the beginning of its great escape. Third, and perhaps most profoundly, non-judgmentally, this is the quality, the flavor of mindful attention. As we begin to pay attention to the present moment, we will notice many things: pleasant feelings, uncomfortable sensations, memories, both happy and sad, and an endless stream of thoughts. Our habitual tendency is to immediately judge these experiences. This is good, I want more. This is bad, I want it to stop. I shouldn't be thinking this. This constant judgment is the engine of the second arrow. It is the struggle and resistance that creates suffering. Non-judgmental awareness invites a radically different approach. It asks us to observe what is happening, both inside and out, with the gentle, unbiased curiosity of a scientist or the unconditional acceptance of a dear friend. It means allowing our experience to be exactly what it is, without needing to fix it, change it, or condemn it. It is a deep letting be. It is vital to clear up some common myths about what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not about stopping your thoughts or emptying your mind. This is a common and frustrating goal for beginners. The mind's nature is to produce thoughts, just as a heart's nature is to beat. The goal of mindfulness is not to stop the thoughts, but to change your relationship to them. It is to learn to sit on the bank of the river of your mind and watch the thoughts float by, without feeling the need to jump in and be carried away by the current. Mindfulness is also not necessarily about being calm or relaxed. While a sense of peace is often a wonderful side effect of the practice, it is not the primary objective. The goal is awareness. You can be mindfully aware of intense anxiety. You can be mindfully aware of fiery anger. You can be mindfully aware of profound grief. The practice is not to replace these feelings with calm ones, but to meet them with a steady, non-judgmental presence. In doing so, you discover that you are bigger than your feelings. You are the space in which they arise and pass away. To make this more concrete, imagine you are in a movie theater. The film begins, and it is a gripping drama. As you watch, you forget you are in a theater. You forget your own life. You are completely absorbed in the story on the screen. When the hero is in peril, your heart pounds. When a tragedy occurs, you feel a lump in your throat. You are fused with the experience, lost in the narrative. This is our default state of consciousness, completely lost in the movie of our own past, reacting as if the drama is happening right now for the first time. Now, imagine in the middle of that intense scene, you suddenly wake up. You become aware of the feel of the velvet seat beneath you. You hear the faint sound of someone coughing a few rows back. You notice the cool air of the theater on your skin. You are suddenly aware that you are a person, sitting in a seat, watching a movie. The movie is still playing on the screen. The drama is still unfolding, but now there is space around it. You are no longer lost in it. You are aware of it. You have shifted from being a character in the movie to being the audience. This shift is the very essence of mindfulness. It is the moment you wake up from the story of your past. A painful memory arises, and instead of being lost in it, you recognize, this is a memory. This is the past, playing on the screen of my mind. A wave of sadness washes over you, and you recognize, this is the feeling of sadness. It is here. In that moment of recognition, you are no longer the sadness. You are the awareness that is aware of sadness. This creates what we can call a sacred pause. Normally, there is a stimulus, a memory, a word, a feeling, and an immediate, unconscious reaction, the firing of the second arrow. There is no space between the two. Mindfulness inserts a space. A memory arises. Pause. You see it. In that pause, freedom is born. In that space, you have a choice. You can see the second arrow in your hand and choose not to shoot it. You can choose to respond to your experience with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting with the blind force of habit. This space is where all our power lies. It is the space where healing happens. This might sound like a superpower, and in a way, it is. But it is not a magical gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It is an innate human capacity, a muscle that can be trained and strengthened through practice. We have explored the why, the what, and the what if. Now we turn to the how. How do we begin to build this muscle? How do we cultivate this life-altering awareness? We start with the most simple, reliable, and humble tool we possess. A tool that is with us from the moment of our birth to the moment of our death. An anchor that is always and without fail in the present moment. We start by learning to pay attention to our own breath. We have arrived at the threshold of practice. We have seen that our freedom lies in the present moment. And the key to unlocking that present moment is a mindful, non-judgmental awareness. But our minds, as we know all too well, are turbulent places, constantly swept up in the currents of past and future. To begin the work of steadying the mind, we need an anchor. We need a focal point that is reliable, simple, and always available to us. A place to return to when we are lost in the storm. That anchor is the breath. Why the breath? Because the breath has a unique and profound quality. It is always happening in the present. You cannot take a breath that is in the past. You cannot inhale in the future. To be aware of your breathing is, by definition, to be grounded in the here and now. The past may pull at you with its regrets. The future may call to you with its anxieties. But the breath is a constant, faithful companion in the present. It is the silent rhythm of life itself, flowing in and out, a wave of sensation that has been with you from your first moment and will be with you until your last. It requires no special equipment, no particular belief, and it is utterly free. It is the most humble and yet the most powerful tool we have for returning home to ourselves. So let us explore how to use it. This is not about learning a complex breathing technique, nor is it about trying to control the breath in any way. It is simply about learning to rest our attention upon its natural rhythm, to feel it, and to allow it to be our guide out of the labyrinth of our thoughts. Find a comfortable position, perhaps sitting in a chair, with your feet flat on the floor and your spine relatively straight, but not rigid. You want a posture that embodies both dignity and ease. Allow your hands to rest in your lap or on your thighs. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, you can leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze directed toward the floor a few feet in front of you. Now, bring your attention inward. For a moment, just notice the general landscape of your inner world without needing to change anything. Then, begin to search for the physical sensations of your breath. Where do you feel it most vividly? For some, it is at the tip of the nostrils. You might feel the subtle coolness of the air as it enters, and the slight warmth as it leaves. For others, the sensation is most prominent in the chest, the feeling of the ribs gently expanding and contracting with each cycle of breath. And for others still, the most noticeable sensation is in the abdomen, the soft rising of the belly as you inhale, and its gentle falling as you exhale. There is no right or wrong place. Simply choose one of these locations as your primary focus, the home base for your attention. Now, rest your awareness there. Your only task is to feel the raw physical sensations of one single breath, from its beginning to its end. Feel the in-breath, feel the out-breath. You are not thinking about breathing, you are feeling the breath itself. There is no need to label it in, out, just feel. Notice the subtle pauses between the breaths. Notice the unique texture and rhythm of your breathing in this moment. You are not trying to make it deeper, or slower, or better in any way. You are simply allowing the breath to breathe itself, and you are the silent, curious witness to this fundamental process of life. Now, here is the most important instruction of all. At some point, very soon, your mind will wander. This is not a guess. It is a guarantee. A thought will arise, a memory will surface, a sound will catch your attention, and you will find that you are no longer feeling your breath. You will be lost in thought, planning, remembering, worrying. Please hear this clearly. The moment your mind wanders is not a mistake. It is not a failure. It is not a sign that you are bad at this. It is simply what minds do. The moment you realize, oh, my mind has wandered, that moment of realization is the moment of mindfulness. In that instant, you have woken up from the dream of thought. So, when you notice your mind has wandered, what do? You do something incredibly simple and incredibly kind. You gently acknowledge where your mind went. Thinking, memory, and then you softly, without any judgment or frustration, guide your attention back to feeling the physical sensations of the breath. That's it. That is the entire practice. Breathing in, breathing out, noticing the mind has wandered, gently returning, over and over and over again. In Buddhist teachings, this process is sometimes compared to taming a wild animal, like a buffalo. Imagine your mind is a strong, energetic, young buffalo, full of life, always wanting to roam into the lush fields of memory and fantasy. The practice of mindfulness is like tying this buffalo to a sturdy post with a long rope. The post is the present moment, and the rope is your breath. At first, the buffalo will pull and strain, running to the very end of the rope again and again. A harsh or impatient farmer might beat the buffalo for this, becoming angry and frustrated. But a wise farmer knows this is just the buffalo's nature. So, with patience and persistence, every time the buffalo wanders, the farmer gently uses the rope to guide it back toward the post. He doesn't yank or scream, he just guides. Over time, the buffalo learns that the area around the post is safe and comfortable. It becomes less restless. It learns to lie down and rest peacefully. So it is with our minds. Every single time you notice your mind has drifted into the past, and you gently escort it back to the present moment via the breath, you are performing a revolutionary act. You are weakening the old, unconscious neural pathways of rumination and worry. You are breaking the trance that allows the past to dictate your present reality. Simultaneously, you are strengthening the neural pathways of awareness, attention, and self-compassion. Each return is a single repetition, a bicep curl for the brain's mindfulness muscle. You are building a sanctuary inside yourself, a stable inner platform. This doesn't mean the storms of the past will never arise. It means that when they do, you will have a safe harbor to return to, a place of stability from which you can witness the storm without being capsized by it. So begin where you are. You do not need an hour. Start with 5 minutes a day. Find a quiet time and simply sit with your breath. Let go of any expectations of having a good or peaceful session. Your only goal is to pay attention and to gently return when you wander. This simple, humble practice of anchoring yourself in the breath is the foundation upon which all other forms of healing can be built. It is the steady ground we cultivate, so that we may soon have the courage to look up and clearly see the very clouds of thought that populate the sky of our mind. Having established the breath as our steadfast anchor in the turbulent sea of the present moment, we have built a platform of stability. From this newfound ground, we can now turn our attention to the very weather of the mind itself, to the endless parade of thoughts that marches across our awareness. For many of us, this inner world of thought is not a peaceful landscape. It is a battlefield, a courtroom, a haunted house where the ghosts of the past hold sway. We believe that to find peace, we must somehow defeat these thoughts, argue them into submission, or banish them entirely. But this approach, the approach of struggle, only creates more conflict and more suffering. The path to freedom lies not in fighting our thoughts, but in fundamentally changing our relationship to them. It begins with the simple but revolutionary insight: your thoughts are not facts. Consider the nature of thought itself. Where do thoughts come from? They seem to appear from a mysterious void, unbidden and often unwanted. Our mind is a thought-generating organ. This is its biological function, just as it is the function of the lungs to breathe and the stomach to digest. We do not condemn our stomachs for producing digestive acids. We understand this is simply what they do to keep us alive. Yet, we endlessly condemn our minds for producing thoughts, especially the difficult ones. We berate ourselves. I shouldn't be thinking this. Why can't I stop worrying? This is like being angry at the sky for producing clouds. It is a futile and exhausting battle against a natural process. The first step in this practice is to depersonalize the act of thinking. It is not always you who is consciously and deliberately crafting each thought. Much of the time, the mind is simply doing its job, churning out mental content based on years of conditioning, memory, and biological impulse. To see this is to take a huge step back from the fray. The thoughts are not you, and they are not necessarily for you. They are simply what the mind is doing in this moment. When we are lost in the past, we are not actually in the past. We are lost in present moment thoughts about the past. This is a crucial distinction. The event itself is gone, a phantom of time. All that is real, right now, is the thought appearing in your awareness. We suffer because we grant these thoughts the status of absolute truth. A thought arises that says, "You are a failure because of what you did 10 years ago." We hear this not as a suggestion or a piece of mental weather, but as a verdict delivered by the supreme judge of the universe. We fuse with the thought, we become it, and we experience the full emotional weight of that verdict, as if it were being handed down right now. The thought, a transient wisp of energy, becomes a solid brick in the wall of our identity. The practice of mindfulness invites us to become a thought scientist, an impartial observer of our own mental activity. We shift our focus from being entangled in the content of the thought, the story, the drama, the accusation, to observing the process of the thought itself. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river. The thoughts are the various items floating by on the current. Leaves, sticks, muddy water, perhaps an occasional beautiful flower. Our habit is to jump into the river and grab onto a particular log of thought, usually a heavy, waterlogged one from the past, and be carried downstream by it, tumbling and struggling. The practice is to simply remain on the bank, watching the whole procession float by. You note, there is a stick, there is a leaf, there is some muddy water. You observe them arise, linger for a moment, and then drift out of sight. You do not have to jump in. You do not have to follow them. You are the witness, not the victim, of the river's flow. To cultivate this skill of witnessing, we can employ a simple, powerful technique known as noting or labeling. It is a way of formally acknowledging the thoughts that appear in our mind without getting caught in their narrative webs. As you sit, anchored to the gentle rhythm of your breath, you will notice a thought pull your attention away. In the moment you recognize this, you can apply a soft, gentle, one-word label to it, mentally. If you find yourself rehashing an old argument, you might whisper in your mind, remembering. If you are worrying about the consequences of a past action, you might note, worrying. If you are judging yourself, judging. If you are lost in a detailed fantasy about how things could have been different, planning, or imagining, the label should be applied with the lightness of a feather touching a soap bubble. It is not a harsh stamp of judgment. It is a soft whisper of recognition. The purpose is twofold. First, the act of applying a label immediately creates a space between you, the observer, and the thought that is being observed. In that space, freedom is found. You are no longer fused with the thought. You are the one who is aware of the thought. There is the anger, and there is the one who knows. This is anger. This distinction is everything. Second, labeling acts as a circuit breaker for the chain reactions of habitual thinking. A painful memory often doesn't travel alone. It brings with it an entire entourage of related thoughts. Self-blame, anger at others, fear for the future, and so on. This is the second, third, and fourth arrow. When we catch the very first thought, the memory, and simply label it, remembering, we interrupt the chain before it can gather momentum. We unhook ourselves from the narrative before it pulls us completely under. We acknowledge the thought, and then, crucially, we gently guide our attention back to the anchor of the breath. We let the thought go, just as we would release a leaf back into the river, and we return to the solid ground of our present moment sensations. As you practice this, you will begin to see your thoughts not as unique, urgent truths, but as repetitive, impersonal patterns. You will start to recognize your mind's greatest hits of suffering. There's the "I'm not good enough" story again. There's the "it's all their fault" monologue. And here comes my old friend, what if? When you can see your stories as familiar, recurring patterns, they lose their power and their authority. They become like a predictable television rerun that you no longer need to pay close attention to. You can greet them with a kind of weary familiarity, even a sense of humor. Hello, worry. I see you've stopped by for your daily visit. Please have a seat. I'll be over here with my breath. This leads us to the most beautiful and encompassing metaphor for this practice: the sky and the clouds. Think of your true nature, the core of your being, your awareness itself, as a vast, open, boundless blue sky. The sky is your birthright. It is inherently peaceful, clear, and spacious. It has never been damaged. It cannot be stained or broken. It is always, already, whole. Now, think of your thoughts, feelings, and memories as the weather, as the clouds that drift through the sky. Some clouds are light, white, and puffy, like fleeting moments of joy or pleasant daydreams. Others are dark, heavy, menacing storm clouds, like the painful memories, the self-criticism, the deep-seated fears that come from our past. For most of our lives, we have made a fundamental error. We have believed that we are the clouds. When a dark storm cloud of a memory appears, we think, I am this storm. I am dark. I am turbulent. I am full of lightning and pain. We contract around the storm, believing it is the entirety of our reality. The practice of mindfulness, of watching and labeling our thoughts, is the process of realizing that we are not the clouds, we are the sky. You are the vast, silent, accepting sky in which the clouds of thought and memory appear. The darkest storm cloud can roll in, obscuring the blue for a time. The wind can howl, the rain can fall, but the storm cannot harm the sky. The sky simply provides the space for the storm to be a storm, and it holds the deep, quiet, knowing that, because of the law of impermanence, this storm, like every storm before it, will eventually pass. The clouds will break, they will dissipate, and the clear, boundless blue of your true nature will be revealed once more, as it was always there, untouched and serene. When a traumatic memory arises, see it as a dark thunderhead. Instead of becoming the storm, be the sky. Allow the cloud to be there. Feel its energy, its electricity, its rain, but know that you are the vast open space that holds it all. You are bigger than your biggest storm. This realization changes everything. It means you don't have to push the clouds away. You don't have to fight the weather. You simply have to rest in your sky-like nature and allow the weather of your mind to pass through. This is the freedom that comes from seeing that thoughts are not facts. They are mental events. They are clouds. They are objects floating in the river of awareness. By anchoring ourselves in the breath, by gently noting the thoughts that arise, and by remembering that we are the sky, not the clouds, we untangle ourselves from the stories of the past. We learn to rest in the quiet authority of our own spacious awareness. But thoughts do not always come as simple words. They are often deeply intertwined with powerful energies in the body, the raw data of emotion. To continue our journey, we must now learn to bring this same mindful, sky-like attention to the very texture of our feelings. Having learned to sit on the bank of the river of our minds, watching the thoughts of the past float by as transient clouds, we must now turn to the energy that powers them. Thoughts rarely travel alone. They are often charged with a potent, visceral force that we call emotion or feeling. It is one thing to observe the thought, "He betrayed me," but it is another thing entirely to be with the hot, searing energy of anger that accompanies it. It is one thing to see the memory of a loss, and another to feel the heavy, hollow ache of grief in the center of your chest. For many of us, it is these feelings, not the thoughts themselves, that are the most terrifying aspect of the past. We are afraid that if we truly allow ourselves to feel them, we will be consumed, that the sadness will drown us, or the anger will burn us alive. From a young age, we are taught to manage our feelings, which is often a polite way of saying we should suppress them. We are told, "Don't cry, calm down, get over it." We learn to see difficult emotions as enemies, as signs of weakness or problems to be fixed. So, when they arise, we instinctively engage in a battle. We push them down. We distract ourselves with work or entertainment. We numb them with food or alcohol. Or we get lost in the story of the emotion, analyzing it, justifying it, and blaming others for it. But all of these strategies are forms of resistance, and what we resist persists. Pushing away an emotion is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense and constant effort, and the moment you lose concentration, the ball shoots up to the surface with even greater force. The path of mindfulness offers a radically different and profoundly kinder approach. It invites us to stop seeing our emotions as enemies and to start seeing them as wise, if sometimes loud, messengers. An emotion is simply energy moving through the body, carrying information. Anger may be a messenger telling you that a boundary has been violated or an injustice has occurred. Fear may be a messenger pointing to something you cherish that feels threatened. Sadness may be the messenger that arrives to honor a genuine loss, guiding you toward what needs to be grieved and healed. When we refuse to listen to the message, when we shoot the messenger, it doesn't go away. It simply shouts louder, expressing itself through chronic anxiety, unexplained depression, physical tension, or sudden, overwhelming outbursts. To heal, we must learn to stop fighting our feelings and start befriending them. The primary tool for this is the same mindful awareness we have been cultivating, but we direct it away from the story in our head and toward the raw sensations in our body. An emotion is not an abstract concept, it is a physical experience. The shift from thinking about the feeling to actually feeling the feeling is the key to its liberation. The next time a difficult emotion connected to your past arises, try this gentle investigation. First, simply acknowledge its presence without judgment. You can say to yourself, sadness is here, or this is the feeling of anger. This simple recognition stops the immediate habit of resistance. You are naming what is true in your inner world. Second, ask yourself a gentle question. Where does this feeling live in my body? Scan your body with a soft, curious attention. Is the anxiety a tightness in your throat? Is it a fluttering, buzzing sensation in your stomach? Is the sadness a heavy weight on your shoulders or an ache deep within your chest? Is the anger a hot, prickly energy rising up your neck and into your jaw? Be a patient explorer. There is no need to find the right answer. Simply notice where the energy of the emotion makes itself known most clearly as a physical sensation. Third, once you have located it, move your attention closer. Investigate its raw, physical qualities, leaving the story behind for a moment. You are not interested in why you are angry. You are interested in what the physical sensation of anger feels like. Is it hot or cold? Is it moving or still? Does it have a size or a shape? Is it sharp or dull, vibrating or solid? Approach these sensations with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a natural phenomenon. By doing this, you are untangling the raw energy of the emotion from the narrative that fuels it. The energy itself is neutral. It is the story that makes it good or bad. Finally, you can gently breathe into the sensation. This is not an attempt to blow it away or get rid of it. It is a gesture of kindness and acceptance. Imagine that your in-breath can carry spaciousness and oxygen to that tight spot in your chest. Imagine that your out-breath can help soften the edges of that knot in your stomach. You are not fighting the sensation. You are creating space around it, allowing it to be there, giving it room to breathe. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offers a beautiful analogy for this practice. He compares a strong emotion to a crying baby. When you hear a baby crying in the house, what is the compassionate response? You don't yell at it to be quiet. You don't pretend you can't hear it. You don't lock the door and hope it goes away. A loving parent goes to the baby, gently picks it up, and holds it close. This act of picking up and holding the baby is the energy of mindfulness. When you hold the crying baby, you may not know exactly why it is crying. Is it hungry? Is it cold? Is it scared? You may not know, but your calm, loving, non-judgmental presence itself is a powerful balm. You cradle the baby, and perhaps you whisper, "I am here for you. I know you are suffering. I will take care of you." Your anger is your crying baby. Your fear is your crying baby. Your deep sadness is your crying baby. The practice of mindfulness of feelings is the act of turning toward this inner child, picking it up with tenderness and holding it in the warm, safe embrace of your own awareness. You are not indulging the emotion or letting it run wild. You are containing it with compassion. You are being a loving parent to the wounded parts of yourself. When we can hold an emotion in this way, something miraculous begins to happen. An emotion is a form of energy, and like all energy, it wants to move. When we resist it, we freeze it in place, like a block of ice. It becomes a solid, painful knot within us. But when we hold that frozen block of feeling in the warm, open palm of our awareness, it naturally begins to melt. The warmth of our non-judgmental attention allows the frozen energy to thaw, to transform back into flowing water. It may turn into the tears we never allowed ourselves to cry, or the trembling release of fear we held so tightly in our muscles. We discover that feelings are not permanent states. They are transient waves of energy that, when met with acceptance, will complete their natural life cycle and pass on their own. By learning to befriend our emotions in this way, we develop a deep and unshakable confidence in our own hearts. We learn that we are capable of being with our own pain, without being destroyed by it. We realize we are the container, far bigger than anything it could ever hold. We have our anchor in the breath, our clarity about the nature of thought, and now, a compassionate friendship with our feelings. We are now prepared. We are now equipped to approach the very heart of our wounds, not with fear, but with all the tools necessary for their gentle and profound healing. We have now arrived at a place of profound potential. We have our anchor in the breath, which brings us back to the present. We have learned to see our thoughts as passing clouds, not as unchangeable facts. And we have begun to befriend the energy of our emotions, meeting them in the body with acceptance rather than resistance. With these skills as our foundation, we are now ready to learn a formal practice that weaves them all together, a structured, compassionate method for working directly with the most difficult moments of our lives, especially when the ghosts of the past come to call. This practice is known by the simple and memorable acronym, RAIN. RAIN is not a tool to make pain go away. It is a practice of meeting our pain with the full power of our hearts. It is a lifeline of self-compassion, for when we are caught in the storm, the 4 steps of RAIN are recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. Let us walk through this gentle path together, exploring each step as a deliberate act of healing. The first step is R, recognize. This is the moment mindfulness dawns. It is the simple, yet profound, act of acknowledging what is happening in your inner world right now. When you are suddenly gripped by a painful memory or a wave of emotion, the first step is to gently name it. It is a soft, mental whisper, a simple registration of the truth of the moment. Ah, the memory of that argument is here. This is shame. Grief is present. I am feeling the sting of that old criticism. This act of recognition is deceptively powerful. In our habitual state, we are not aware of our emotions. We are our emotions. We are possessed by them. The anger is not a feeling we are having. It has become the entirety of who we are in that moment. By recognizing and naming the experience, you immediately create a sliver of space. You are no longer lost in the storm. You are the one who is noticing the storm. It is a shift from being fused with the experience to being the witness of the experience. You are gently calling the monster out from the shadows and into the light of awareness. Not to fight it, but simply to see that it is there. This step alone halts the unconscious downward spiral of suffering and brings you back into a position of presence and power. The second step is A, allow. This step is perhaps the most radical departure from our lifelong conditioning. Having recognized the presence of a difficult thought or emotion, the practice is to allow it to be there. This does not mean you like it. It does not mean you approve of it. It simply means you are dropping the rope in the tug of war. You are ending the internal battle. You can express this as a gentle inner command. Let this be. This is allowed. Yes. This yes is not a yes of resignation, but a yes to the reality of the present moment. The pain is already here. The memory has already arisen. Fighting it, resisting it, pushing it away is the very source of the second arrow. It is the struggle itself that exhausts us and deepens the wound. To allow is to become still in the presence of the discomfort. Imagine you are stuck in quicksand. Your instinct is to struggle wildly, but this only causes you to sink faster. The only way to survive is to relax, to become still, to allow your body to be supported by the very thing that threatens it. Allowing your pain to be present is like this. You stop struggling. You let go of the tension of, I don't want this, and you simply acknowledge, this is what is here right now. In this non-resistance, a strange and wonderful thing happens. The war ends. And even if the pain remains, the suffering about the pain begins to dissolve. The third step is investigate. With the war over, and with a spirit of gentle acceptance, we can now turn toward our experience with curiosity. This is not a cold, analytical investigation. It is an investigation with a kind heart, a desire to understand. We are not trying to figure out why this is happening in order to fix it. We are trying to become intimate with the experience itself. This investigation primarily happens in the body. As we practiced before, you can ask, what does this experience truly feel like as a physical sensation? Where is its epicenter? Is it hot or cold, tense or vibrating? Stay with these direct, raw sensations. This grounds the experience and keeps you out of the looping stories of the mind. From this embodied presence, you can then ask a deeper, more vulnerable question. You can turn to the part of you that is hurting and tenderly ask, what is it you are believing right now? Or, what does this vulnerable part of me most need? Be very quiet and listen for the answer that arises from beneath the noise of your intellect. As you investigate the heart of the shame, you might hear the belief, I am worthless. Underneath the persistent anxiety, you might find the belief, I am not safe. At the core of the deep sadness, you might discover the belief, I will always be alone. This investigation is about finding the lie, the painful misunderstanding that you have been carrying for so long, the very tip of the second arrow. This brings us to the fourth and final step, N, nurture. This is where the healing is sealed. Having recognized the pain, allowed it to be present, and investigated its source to find the hurting place and its mistaken belief, you now intentionally offer kindness and compassion to that vulnerable part of yourself. Nurture is the act of self-compassion in action. How do you nurture? You can use physical gestures, like placing a hand gently over your heart or on the part of your body where you feel the pain most strongly. The warmth and gentle pressure of your own hand is a powerful signal of care to your nervous system. And then, you can offer words of kindness, mentally. You speak to yourself as you would to a beloved child or a dear friend who was suffering in the same way. If you uncovered the belief, I am worthless, you can nurture yourself with the words, my dear, you are not worthless. You are intrinsically worthy of love and respect. If you found the belief, I am not safe, you can offer the reassurance, I am here with you now. I will not abandon you. We are safe in this moment. If you found the sad belief, I will always be alone, you can whisper, it feels that way right now, and that is so painful. But I am here. I will stay with you. You are not alone in this. This act of nurturing directly meets the unmet need of the wounded inner child. It provides the safety, acceptance, and love that were likely absent during the original painful event, and have certainly been absent in all the moments since when you have judged yourself for having this pain. You are becoming your own compassionate parent, your own best friend. Imagine a person haunted by a memory of being publicly humiliated by a teacher years ago. When the memory is triggered, they can practice rain. Recognize, the feeling of shame is here. The voice of that teacher is in my head. Allow. They take a breath and say, this is painful, but I will let it be here for a moment. I don't have to push it away. Investigate. They feel a hot, shrinking sensation in their stomach. They ask, what is this shame believing? And they hear the answer, I am stupid, and everyone knows it. Nurture. They place a hand on their stomach. They say, you were just a kid. It was not okay for you to be treated that way. You are not stupid. You are intelligent and kind. And I am here for you now. Rain is a practice for a lifetime. It is a way to turn toward yourself in moments of crisis, transforming them from moments of self-abandonment into moments of profound self-care. It integrates all the skills we have learned into one flowing gesture of wisdom and love. And its final step, nurture, is so essential to healing the wounds of the past that it deserves its own deeper exploration. For to truly heal, we must learn to cultivate a heart that is a limitless source of this nurturing compassion. The practice of rain culminates in its final, most tender step, nurture. This act of bringing kindness to our own suffering is the very heart of healing. It is the active ingredient in the medicine of mindfulness. In the Buddhist tradition, this quality of active kindness in the face of suffering is known as karuna, or compassion. And while we often think of compassion as something we extend to others, the Buddhist path insists that for our compassion to be genuine and sustainable, it must begin with ourselves. We cannot offer a cool cup of water to a thirsty world if our own well is dry. The journey of healing the past is, therefore, inseparable from the journey of learning to be a friend to ourselves. For many of us, this is the most difficult task of all. Living inside our minds can be like living with a harsh and relentless critic. This inner critic is the voice that narrates our past, not as a neutral history, but as a long list of our failings, mistakes, and inadequacies. It is the voice that whispers, you should have known better. It's all your fault. If only you had been smarter, stronger, better. When a painful memory arises, this critic is the first on the scene, not with a bandage, but with more salt to pour into the wound. It tells us we are uniquely flawed, that our pain is a punishment we deserve. We have become so accustomed to this voice that we mistake its cruelty for the truth. We often believe this inner critic is trying to protect us, that its harshness will motivate us to avoid future mistakes. But its methods are born of fear, not wisdom. It is like a guard dog trained with such brutality that it can no longer distinguish between a threat and the owner of the house. It attacks indiscriminately, keeping us in a state of chronic stress, shame, and fear. It prevents us from learning from the past, because it makes looking at the past an exercise in self-flagellation. The practice of self-compassion, of karuna, is the act of gently retraining this inner guard dog. It is the process of teaching our own hearts a new language, a language of kindness, acceptance, and unconditional friendship. How do we begin to learn this language? We can engage in a formal practice, a meditation designed specifically to cultivate a compassionate heart. Find a posture that is both comfortable and alert. Allow your body to soften, and as a gesture of kindness, you might place a hand over the center of your chest, feeling the gentle warmth of your own touch. This simple physical act can begin to signal to your nervous system that you are shifting from a mode of threat to a mode of care. Then, you can begin to offer yourself phrases of loving kindness. These are not affirmations. You must force yourself to believe. They are wishes, offerings, seeds of kindness that you plant in the soil of your own heart. The power is in the sincerity of the offering, not in the immediate result. You might begin with the classic phrases, repeating them softly and slowly in your mind. May I be safe. This is a wish for deep security, a freedom from harm, both internal and external. It is a wish to be safe from the attacks of your own inner critic. May I be happy. This is not a wish for fleeting pleasure, but for a genuine and enduring well-being. The kind of happiness that comes from a peaceful heart. May I be healthy. This is a wish for the health of your body and, just as importantly, the health of your mind and spirit. May I live with ease. This is a wish for freedom from suffering, a release from the constant, grinding struggle. It is a wish to move through life with grace and peace. As you offer these phrases to yourself, be aware of what happens. It is very likely that the inner critic will object. A voice may arise saying, "You don't deserve this," or "This is selfish," or "This is pointless." When this happens, do not fight the voice. See it for what it is. Just another thought, cloud passing through the sky of your awareness. Acknowledge it. The voice of judgment, and then, with gentle persistence, return to offering the phrases. The act of continuing to offer kindness in the face of the critic's objections is itself a powerful act of compassion. You are choosing to side with the part of you that wants to heal. There is a story of a woman on a long meditation retreat who became incredibly frustrated. Every time she tried to focus on her breath, her mind would wander away into endless daydreams and worries. She grew angry with herself, silently scolding her mind for its lack of discipline. Her meditation became a battleground, full of tension and self-recrimination. She finally went to the Zen master leading the retreat and confessed her failure. The master listened patiently and then said to her, "The next time you notice your mind has wandered, instead of scolding it, try treating it like a beloved child. Say to it, 'Oh, my dear, you have wandered off again. It's okay. Let us gently come home now.'" This simple instruction transformed the woman's practice. When her mind wandered, she met it not with anger, but with the tenderness she would offer to a small, lost child. She saw that her mind's wandering was not a malicious act of rebellion, but simply its nature, like a curious puppy. By meeting her own perceived failings with this gentle, nurturing attitude, her inner world transformed from a battlefield into a welcoming home. This is the essence of karuna. It is applying this same gentle welcome to all the wounded parts of ourselves, especially to the parts that carry the memories of past mistakes. When we look back at a time we acted unskillfully, a time we hurt someone or hurt ourselves, compassion allows us to see the bigger picture. It allows us to recognize that we likely acted from a place of our own pain, confusion, ignorance, or fear. We see that the person who made that mistake was also suffering. This understanding is the gateway to self-forgiveness. Forgiving yourself does not mean you condone the harmful action. It does not mean you pretend it didn't happen. It means you release yourself from the ongoing punishment of guilt and self-blame, a punishment that serves no one and only keeps you chained to the past. It is the recognition that you have suffered enough from that event. Self-forgiveness is an act of profound kindness that says, "I have learned from this. I am committed to acting with greater wisdom now. I will not carry this burden of shame any longer. It is cutting the chains so that you can finally move forward. By cultivating this compassionate friendship with ourselves, we build a solid and resilient foundation for our lives. We learn that we can be our own source of comfort and strength. Our own heart becomes a sanctuary. And when this foundation is in place, when our own well begins to fill with the water of self-compassion, a remarkable thing happens. We find we have more to offer others. Our capacity for empathy and understanding grows, and we may even find the strength and wisdom to extend this compassion outward, to face one of the most challenging parts of healing, forgiving those who have harmed us. Having cultivated a heart of compassion for ourselves, we arrive at one of the most challenging and transformative landscapes on the path of healing, the territory of forgiveness. For many, the very word forgiveness is heavy, freighted with misunderstanding and a sense of impossible moral obligation. It can feel like a demand to betray our own pain, to say that what happened was acceptable when it was not. We may feel that to forgive the person who harmed us is to let them win, to erase the gravity of the wrong they committed. So let us begin here with absolute clarity. The practice of forgiveness, in the context of healing, is not for the other person. It is for you. It is the ultimate act of self-liberation. First, we must dismantle what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not condoning. It is not saying, what you did was okay. You can hold two truths in your heart simultaneously. The truth that what happened was deeply wrong and harmful, and the truth that you will no longer allow it to poison your present moment. Forgiveness is not about changing the past. It is about not letting the past destroy your future. Forgiveness is not forgetting. The popular phrase forgive and forget can be profoundly damaging. To forget a deep betrayal or a serious abuse may be to leave yourself vulnerable to being harmed again. The goal is not to develop amnesia, but to change the nature of the memory. A memory held with resentment is an open, festering wound, painful to the slightest touch. A memory held with forgiveness is a scar. The scar is a testament to the fact that you were wounded, but it is also a testament to the fact that you have healed. It no longer hurts to touch it. It has become a part of your landscape, a source of wisdom about where to walk more carefully. But it no longer has the power to cause you fresh pain. Forgiveness is not necessarily reconciliation. It does not mean you must trust the person again, speak to them again, or allow them back into your life. You can forgive someone completely and utterly from thousands of miles away and never see them again. Forgiveness is an internal process. Reconciliation is an external one, which requires the trust, remorse, and changed behavior of both parties. You are only responsible for your own inner peace. Forgiveness is about cleaning your own house, regardless of what is happening in theirs. Sometimes, the most compassionate act for yourself and even for the other is to forgive from a safe and protected distance. Finally, forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of profound courage and personal power. It is far easier to cling to the familiar stories of anger and victimhood. These stories, while painful, can give us a sense of identity and moral righteousness. To let them go requires the immense strength to choose peace over being right, to choose freedom over the chains of resentment. The Buddha used a powerful simile. He said that holding on to anger and resentment is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. Who gets burned? While you are waiting for the perfect moment to throw it, while you are rehearsing the story of why they deserve it, the burning coal is searing your own hand. The person who harmed you may be living their life completely unaware of your turmoil. They are not affected by the anger you carry. You are the only one being consumed by its heat. Forgiveness is the wise and compassionate act of realizing the coal is burning you, and for your own sake, choosing to open your hand and let it drop. There is a beautiful Zen story about this. Two monks were on a long journey. They came to a river where a young, beautiful woman stood, hesitating to cross for fear of ruining her fine clothes. The monks had taken vows to avoid all contact with women. Without a word, the older monk picked the woman up, carried her across the churning river, set her down on the other side, and continued on his way. The younger monk was scandalized. He was horrified. For the next several hours, as they walked, he stewed in his anger and judgment. He replayed the scene in his mind, building his case against the older monk's transgression. Finally, unable to contain himself any longer, he burst out, "How could you do that? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman, and yet you carried her across the river." The older monk looked at him calmly and replied, "Brother, I set that woman down on the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? The person who hurt you, the event that caused you pain, is the woman on the other side of the river. The incident is over. It exists only in the past. But like the younger monk, we choose to keep carrying the burden of it for miles and years inside our own hearts and minds. We carry the weight of the injustice, the anger, the grief. We allow it to exhaust us, to embitter us, to steal the joy from our present journey. Forgiveness is the moment we realize we are still carrying this heavy load, and we make the conscious, liberating choice to set it down, right here, on the side of the road. This is rarely a single, definitive event, especially when the wounds are deep. It is not like flipping a switch. Forgiveness is a process, a practice. It is more like untying a complex and tangled knot, one strand at a time. Some days, you may feel a sense of release and peace. On other days, a memory might be triggered, and the old anger or sadness may return. This is not a failure. It is simply an opportunity to practice forgiveness again. It is a chance to notice the hot coal back in your hand and to choose, once more, to let it go. Each time you make this choice, the habit of resentment weakens and the muscle of forgiveness strengthens. You can begin this practice in meditation. Bring to mind the person and the event, allowing the associated feelings to arise in your body. Hold those feelings with the same mindful, compassionate presence you have offered to yourself. Then, you can offer phrases of forgiveness, not as a demand, but as a heartfelt wish. You might say, "I know you acted from your own pain and confusion. For the harm you caused me, I forgive you." Or, if that feels too difficult, you can start with, "To the best of my ability, I am willing to forgive." You can also offer forgiveness to yourself for holding on to this anger for so long and causing myself more pain. I forgive myself. The point is to soften the heart, to introduce the possibility of release. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of kindness to yourself, a declaration that you deserve to be free. It is the final step in reclaiming your own heart, allowing you to turn from the past, not as a bitter victim, but as a wise and liberated survivor. Having walked the path of compassion, learning to soothe our own hearts, and release the burning coal of resentment toward others, we arrive at a place of profound creative power. We have quieted the inner battlefield enough to do the sacred work of a storyteller. The facts of the past are like stones, hard and unchangeable. What happened, happened. But the story we build from those stones, the meaning we weave around them, is entirely within our power to change. For years, we may have been telling ourselves a story of brokenness, a narrative in which the past is a tragedy that has permanently defined and diminished us. Now, with the clarity and kindness we have cultivated, we can begin the work of rewriting that story. not by changing the facts, but by expanding the narrative to include the whole truth of our journey, including our resilience, our wisdom, and our strength. This is the art of transforming the mud of our past into a lotus of awakening. We are narrative creatures. We understand ourselves and our place in the world through the stories we tell. The very identity we call me is a story, a long and complex novel with countless chapters, characters, and plot twists. When it comes to the painful chapters of our past, our minds, in an effort to make sense of the chaos and pain, often default to a single, disempowering genre, the tragedy. In this version of the story, we are cast in the role of the victim. The defining characteristic of the victim narrative is powerlessness. Life happens to us. We are at the mercy of other people's actions and life's cruel circumstances. The story focuses exclusively on what was lost, on the damage that was done, on the wound that will never heal. It is a story told from the perspective of the scar, and it concludes that we are forever weakened, forever less than what we might have been. While this story may have served a purpose at one time, perhaps protecting us by keeping us small and cautious, to live inside it forever is to live in a prison of our own narrative making. The practice of rewriting our story begins with a radical acceptance of this truth. The raw footage of the past is fixed, but the editing is up to us. Imagine your past experiences are a vast archive of film. The victim narrative takes only the most painful, traumatic scenes and splices them together to create a horror film, complete with dramatic music and a sense of impending doom. It is a valid interpretation of the footage, but it is a profoundly limited one. Mindfulness and compassion give us the emotional stability to re-enter the editing room of our own minds. They allow us to turn on the lights, to look at the entire archive of footage, not just the scary parts, and to ask ourselves, what else is here? What other story could be told from this same raw material? Could this footage also be edited to tell a story of survival? A story of courage? A story about the birth of compassion? This is not an exercise in toxic positivity. It is not about pretending the painful scenes didn't happen or putting a superficial silver lining on trauma. It is about telling a story that is more complete, more complex, and ultimately more true. It is about honoring the pain while also honoring the incredible strength and grace that grew in response to it. We can begin this sacred re-editing process by engaging in a gentle, courageous inquiry. Bring to mind a difficult period from your past. First, hold it with all the mindfulness and self-compassion you have learned. Feel its weight. Acknowledge its pain. Then, from the safe vantage point of the present moment, begin to ask these questions, not seeking easy answers, but listening for the quiet truths that may have been drowned out by the old story. First, ask yourself, what strengths did I discover in myself during that time that I never knew I had? Perhaps you discovered a deep well of endurance you didn't know you possessed. Perhaps in the face of fear, you found a spark of courage. Perhaps you uncovered a creativity in your ability to survive, to cope, to just keep going one day at a time. Acknowledge these strengths. They are part of the story too. Next, ask, what crucial lesson did this experience teach me that I might have struggled to learn in an easier way? Maybe that painful betrayal taught you the invaluable lesson of setting healthy boundaries. Perhaps the experience of loss taught you what you truly value in this life. Maybe the failure taught you about humility or the true meaning of success. These lessons are hard-won treasures. They are part of the story. Then, inquire with an open heart. In what way did surviving this pain make me a more compassionate human being? Often, It is our own deep wounds that sensitize us to the suffering of others. When you have known grief, you can sit with a grieving friend with a depth of presence that words cannot convey. When you have known injustice, your heart burns for the plight of others. Your pain can become the very source of your empathy. This transformation is a vital chapter in your new story. Finally, you might ask, how did this event, despite all its pain, redirect my life's path towards something more authentic? Sometimes, it is the major disruptions, the breaking down of our old lives, that force us onto a path we were meant to walk. A painful divorce might lead to a journey of self-discovery. A job loss might become the catalyst for pursuing a lifelong passion. This is not to say the event was good, but to acknowledge that even from the most painful endings, new and unexpected beginnings can arise. This entire process is captured in the Buddhist metaphor of the lotus flower. The lotus is a flower of exquisite beauty, a symbol of enlightenment and purity. But the lotus does not grow in a pristine, manicured garden. The lotus grows out of mud. It pushes its way up from the dark, murky, smelly bottom of a pond. The mud represents all of our suffering, our trauma, our grief, our confusion, our pain. It is the dark, difficult, messy stuff of life that we would rather avoid. For the lotus to grow, the mud is not an obstacle. It is an essential nutrient. The darkness, the decay, the struggle, this is the very substance that feeds the lotus, that gives its stem the strength to push upward toward the sunlight. Without the mud, there could be no lotus. No mud, no lotus is a central teaching. It means that our suffering is not an impediment to our awakening, but the very fertile ground from which our awakening can bloom. The lotus flower, when it finally opens above the water's surface, is pristine and radiant, yet it is forever connected to its muddy origins. It does not deny the mud, it has transformed it. To rewrite your story is to begin to see the mud of your own life in this way. It is to stop cursing the mud and to start recognizing it as the source of your potential strength, your compassion, your wisdom. It is to understand that the person you are today, with all your resilience and depth, could not exist without the difficult experiences you have endured. This shift in narrative is a shift from the archetype of the victim to the archetype of the alchemist, or the hero of your own journey. The victim is defined by what was done to them. The alchemist is defined by what they can create from what was done to them. The alchemist takes the lead of their suffering and, through the fire of mindful, compassionate attention, transforms it into the gold of wisdom. This is the ultimate reclamation of your power. You cease to be a character in a story written by your past, and you become the author, creating meaning, beauty, and purpose from the totality of your life's experience. This new, more expansive, and more compassionate story doesn't just change how you feel about the past. It fundamentally changes how you show up in the present. When you no longer see yourself as a perpetual victim, you stop reacting to the world as if it is a constant threat, and you begin to dismantle the reflexive, conditioned behaviors that have kept you trapped for so long. Having journeyed inward to rewrite the very stories that define us, transforming our personal narratives from tragedies of victimhood into epics of resilience and wisdom, we must now bring this newfound freedom into the dynamic, unpredictable world of our daily lives. It is in our interactions with others, in the heat of a disagreement, in a moment of unexpected disappointment, that the true strength of our healing is tested. For years, the unhealed wounds of our past have been programming our behavior, creating a set of automatic, unconscious reactions that often cause more suffering for ourselves and those around us. Now, with the tools we have gathered, we can begin the delicate and liberating work of breaking these chains, of moving from blind, conditioned reaction to wise, conscious response. Think of your past traumas and deep hurts as creating sensitive, invisible bruises on your soul. In your day-to-day life, you may feel fine, but when someone in the present inadvertently pokes one of these bruises, your reaction is often far greater than the current situation warrants. A partner's slightly critical tone of voice may not just be a minor annoyance. It may trigger the deep, childhood bruise of feeling not good enough, unleashing a torrent of defensiveness or shame. A friend's cancelled plans might not be a simple inconvenience. It could press on the old wound of abandonment, causing you to retreat into a cold, protective silence. In these moments, you are not truly responding to the person in front of you. You are reacting to the ghost of the person who hurt you long ago. The present has become a stage upon which you are forced to reenact the dramas of the past. This is not a failure of character. It is a feature of our biology. Our brains are wired for survival, and they learn from experience. When a painful event occurs, the brain creates a kind of neural shortcut. It links the sensory data of the event, the sights, the sounds, the feeling to a powerful threat response, controlled by a primitive part of the brain called the amygdala. This is an efficient survival mechanism. If you are attacked by an animal near a particular type of tree, your brain learns to associate that tree with danger, triggering a fear response the next time you see one, long before your conscious mind has time to think. This amygdala hijack saves you time in a true emergency. But in the complex world of human relationships, these shortcuts become a liability. The past programs us with a series of emotional hair triggers, causing us to react to perceived threats that are no longer real. The famous experiments of the Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov offer a perfect metaphor for this process. Pavlov observed that dogs naturally salivate when presented with food. This is a simple, unconditioned reflex. He then began to ring a bell every single time he presented the food. After several repetitions, the dog's brains forged a powerful new connection. They learned to associate the sound of the bell with the coming of food. Eventually, Pavlov could ring the bell without offering any food at all, and the dogs would still salivate profusely. The bell, a previously neutral stimulus, now triggered the biological response all by itself. We are, in many ways, like Pavlov's dogs. A painful past event, such as a deep betrayal by someone we trusted, is the food that produced a powerful and genuine emotional response of pain, anger, and mistrust. Now, in the present, a much smaller, more neutral event occurs. A friend tells a white lie, or a colleague takes credit for a small idea. In a vacuum, this might be a minor annoyance, but for us, it is the bell. The sound of this bell, echoing the theme of the original betrayal, triggers the full, conditioned response. We react with the same intensity of mistrust and anger that was appropriate for the original major wound. We are reacting to a memory, to a symbol, not to the reality of the situation at hand. We are living in a world of bells, unconsciously reacting according to an old and outdated script. So how do we break this conditioning? How do we learn to hear the bell without the automatic, conditioned response? The answer lies in the sacred pause that mindfulness provides. As we have practiced, mindfulness creates a space between the stimulus and the response. In the past, the bell would ring, and the reaction would be instantaneous and unconscious. But now, with a mind trained in awareness, a new step is inserted. The bell rings, your partner says something that pushes your buttons. The initial wave of the old, conditioned feeling arises: anger, shame, fear. But right here, mindfulness wakes up. You notice it. Ah, there is the bell. And here is that familiar, hot feeling of anger rising in my chest. This moment of noticing is the moment of liberation. It is the space of choice. For the first time, you are not possessed by the reaction. You are the one who is witnessing its arising. And in this space, you can choose a different path. You do not have to follow the old, well-worn neural highway of lashing out or shutting down. You can consciously choose to take a different road. Instead of immediately speaking from a place of anger, you can choose to take one conscious breath. You can choose to feel the hot energy of the anger in your body without needing to discharge it onto someone else. You can let the wave rise, crest, and begin to fall, all within the vast, accepting space of your awareness. From this calmer place, you can then choose a conscious response instead of an unconscious reaction. Instead of yelling, "You always do this," you might be able to say, "When you said that, it triggered something in me, and I'm feeling very angry. Can we talk about this calmly?" Instead of withdrawing into a resentful silence, you might find the capacity to say, "That hurt my feelings. Let me tell you why." Every single time you successfully navigate a moment like this, you are performing an act of profound self-healing and neurological reprogramming. Each time you notice the trigger and choose a mindful response over a conditioned reaction, you are weakening the old, reactive pathway in your brain. You are letting that overgrown trail become a little more impassable. Simultaneously, you are blazing a new trail, a new neural pathway of mindfulness, patience, and wise communication. The more you walk this new path, the clearer and easier it becomes, until eventually it becomes your new default. This is how the inner freedom we cultivate in meditation translates into real, tangible freedom in our lives and our relationships. We are no longer slaves to the programming of our past. We are no longer reacting to the ghosts of yesterday, but responding with wisdom and compassion to the reality of today. We break the chains of cause and effect that have kept us repeating the same painful patterns. And as we stop reacting from the narrow confines of our own personal history, our perspective begins to widen. We start to see that just as our actions are conditioned by our past, so too are the actions of others. This leads us to a more profound understanding of the vast, interconnected web of life in which we all exist. Having bravely untangled the conditioned knots of reactivity that bind us to our past, we create within ourselves a space of profound clarity and quiet. In this space, we can begin to see beyond the narrow confines of our own personal story and perceive a deeper, more expansive truth about the nature of reality itself. The suffering we have experienced often leaves us feeling isolated, as if our pain is a unique and solitary burden. We feel separate from others, locked in the prison of our own history. The Buddhist path offers a powerful antidote to this isolation, a supreme medicine for the illusion of separateness. This is the wisdom of paticcasamuppada, or dependent origination, a concept more poetically known as interconnectedness. It is the realization that nothing, absolutely nothing, exists on its own. Everything arises in dependence on everything else. To truly grasp this is to see that you are not, and have never been, alone. The core principle of interconnectedness can be summarized in a simple phrase. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. This ceases to be because that ceases to be. Let us explore this with a simple object, like a single sheet of paper. When we look at this paper, we see a distinct object, separate from everything else. But if we look more deeply, with the eyes of wisdom, we see that the paper is full of the entire universe, For the paper to exist, there must first be a tree. For the tree to exist, there must be soil, rain, and sunshine. The rain, of course, was once a cloud. So, the cloud is in the paper. The sunshine is in the paper. The soil, rich with composted leaves and ancient minerals, is in the paper. But it doesn't stop there. The tree was cut down by a logger who needed parents to be born and who ate bread for breakfast to have the energy to work. So the logger's parents and the wheat farmer are also in the paper. The paper was made in a factory by people who designed the machines, who themselves were educated by generations of teachers. All of these people, all of this history, all of this sun and soil and water are not separate from the paper. They are its very substance. The paper, in its essence, is made entirely of non-paper elements. It has no separate, independent self. It is a temporary, beautiful manifestation of a vast web of causes and conditions. So it is with a flower, so it is with a mountain, and so it is with a human being. The you that you take to be so solid and separate is, like the paper, a confluence of countless streams. You are made of the food your ancestors ate, the air of the planet, the language you were taught, the joys and sorrows of your culture, the genetic code passed down through millennia. To see this is to understand that the notion of an isolated, separate self is a powerful illusion. We are not islands. We are waves in a single, unified ocean. How does this grand, cosmic perspective help us with the very personal, intimate pain of our past? It helps by radically reframing the narrative of harm. Let us gently consider the person who caused you pain. When we are trapped in our own suffering, we see this person as a solid, independent agent of malice, a bad person who acted out of pure evil to hurt me. This view, while understandable, is a source of immense and ongoing suffering. It personalizes the pain, making it a targeted assault on our very being. The lens of interconnectedness invites a more spacious, though not necessarily easier, view. It asks us to consider that the person who hurt us is also, like the sheet of paper, a product of countless causes and conditions. Their harmful action did not arise from a vacuum. It arose from their own unhealed wounds, their own ignorance, their own fears. It arose from the stories they were told by their parents, from the suffering of their own ancestors, from the pressures of their own lives. Their pain overflowed and touched you. This does not in any way excuse the harm. Pain is pain. A harmful act is a harmful act. But this perspective can drain the poison of personal malice from the memory. It shifts the story from a bad person chose to hurt me to a suffering human being, caught in their own web of conditioning, acted in a way that caused me to suffer. This shift, however subtle, can be the key that unlocks the door to forgiveness, because it allows us to see the shared humanity even in those who have caused us the greatest pain. This lens also transforms our relationship to our own suffering. When we feel the ache of grief or the sting of betrayal, the story of me makes it feel intensely personal and isolating. But interconnectedness reveals that your pain is not just your pain. The feeling of loss you experience is the same fundamental energy of loss that has been felt by countless beings throughout time. Your heartache connects you to the heartache of every mother who has lost a child, every friend who has been betrayed, every person who has felt the sting of injustice. Your personal story becomes a doorway into the vast, shared ocean of human experience. You are no longer a single, isolated sufferer. You are a participant in the great, sorrowful, beautiful drama of life itself. The walls of your personal prison dissolve, and in their place arises a profound, boundless compassion not just for your own suffering, but for the suffering of all. The most magnificent image for this truth comes from the ancient texts, the vision of Indra's net. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches to infinity in all directions. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, perfectly clear, multifaceted jewel. Each jewel represents one point of existency: a person, a thought, a star, a grain of sand. The magical quality of this net is that if you look into the polished surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire infinite net. And in each of those reflections, the entire net is reflected again, and so on, forever. This is the vision of reality that interconnectedness reveals. Each of us is a single jewel in this cosmic net, but in each of us, the entire universe is reflected. We contain everything, and whatever happens to one jewel, whatever joy, whatever sorrows, sends a subtle shimmer across the entire fabric of the net. Your joy is not just your own. It brightens the reflections in every other jewel. Your pain is not just your own. It casts a shadow that is felt by the whole. This means that your personal journey of healing is not a selfish or solitary endeavor. It is an act of universal significance. Every time you choose to meet your own pain with compassion, every time you choose to forgive, every time you break a cycle of reactivity, you are sending a healing, clarifying shimmer across the entire net of being. You are contributing to the healing of the world by healing yourself. This profound insight is the ultimate cure for loneliness. It is the realization that separation is an illusion, a trick of the mind. You are inextricably woven into the fabric of life, connected to everything that has ever been and everything that ever will be. You are as much a part of the person who harmed you as you are a part of the sun that warms your face. When we begin to truly feel this in our hearts, the armor of self-protection we have carried for so long begins to feel heavy and unnecessary. Our hearts, freed from the burden of personal grievance and the illusion of separateness, naturally begin to soften and open, making space for a more radiant and joyful way of being in the world. As we emerge from the deep, transformative work of healing our relationship with the past, a new landscape begins to appear before us. Having seen through the illusion of our separateness and felt our intrinsic connection to the great web of life, the heavy, self-enclosing walls of personal grievance begin to dissolve. When these walls crumble, the light gets in. For so long, our attention has been held captive by the ghosts of yesterday, our inner vision clouded by the smoke of old resentments and the dust of old sorrows. Now, with our attention liberated, it becomes available to discover what has been here all along, waiting patiently for us in the simplicity of the present moment, the possibility of joy. This capacity for a deep and appreciative joy is known in the Buddhist tradition as mudita. It is one of the four sublime states of heart, alongside loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity. Mudita is often translated as sympathetic joy, the ability to delight in the happiness and good fortune of others. But it also has a broader meaning, a pure, unadulterated gladness of heart, an ability to appreciate the goodness and beauty that exists in the world without needing to possess it or cling to it. It is the joy that arises naturally when the veils of past and future are lifted and we see the present moment in all its fresh, vibrant reality. For a person carrying the heavy weight of a painful past, the very idea of joy can feel distant or even undeserved. The old story of our suffering can become a kind of filter, a grey gauze draped over our perception, muting the world's colors. We become so accustomed to scanning our environment for threats so practiced in the art of anticipating pain that we lose the capacity to notice what is gentle, what is beautiful, what is good. The sun may be shining, but we are lost in the memory of a storm. A friend may offer a genuine compliment, but we hear it through the filter of past criticism. We have forgotten how to simply receive the goodness of life. The healing work we have done, the forgiving, the releasing, the rewriting of our story is the act of gently lifting this grey veil. As it lifts, we do not need to create or manufacture joy. We simply need to open our eyes and see what was blocked from our view. The practice of cultivating mudita, then, is not a grand pursuit of major, life-altering events. It is not about waiting for the perfect job, the perfect relationship, or the perfect vacation to finally grant us permission to be happy. It is a much more subtle and intimate practice. It is the art of training our attention to notice the countless, small, everyday wonders that we have been overlooking. It is about discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary. You can begin this practice right now. Take a moment to consider the simple act of drinking a cup of tea or coffee. For most of us, this is an automatic, unconscious act, something we do while our minds are busy planning the day or rehashing a conversation. To practice mudita is to transform this into an act of mindful appreciation. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. See the steam rising in the light. Inhale its rich aroma. When you take a sip, don't just swallow it. Let it rest in your mouth for a moment. Truly taste it. In that simple, focused moment of pure sensory experience, there is a quiet, simple pleasure that is a seed of mudita. You can practice this throughout your day. When you walk outside, feel the sensation of the sun or the wind on your skin. This is a gift. Listen, truly listen to the sound of birdsong. It is a spontaneous concert, offered freely. Look closely at the intricate, perfect geometry of a leaf or a flower petal. Notice the genuine smile on a stranger's face as they pass you on the street. Each of these is a small portal into the joy of the present moment. Our lives are overflowing with these simple, wholesome pleasures, but our attention is usually elsewhere. The practice of mudita is the practice of repeatedly, intentionally bringing our attention back to what is good, what is beautiful, and what is nourishing, and allowing ourselves to feel a genuine sense of gratitude and delight. This leads us to the second, more classical meaning of mudita, feeling joy for the joy of others. In our modern, competitive culture, this can feel like a radical act. We are often conditioned to feel the opposite. When we hear of a friend's success, a colleague's promotion, or see curated images of someone's happy life on social media, our first, unconscious reaction can be a pang of envy or a feeling of personal deficiency. We compare their highlight reel to our own daily struggles, and we suffer. This habit of comparison is a deep and pervasive source of dukkha. Mudita is the direct antidote. It is born from the wisdom of interconnectedness. When we understand that we are not separate, that we are all jewels in Indra's net, then the success and happiness of another is not a threat to our own. It is a brightening of the entire net. Their joy is our joy. To practice this, when you learn of someone's good fortune, you can consciously pause, acknowledge any pangs of envy that might arise, seeing them as just clouds. Then, intentionally shift your focus, open your heart, and silently say to that person, "I am so happy for you. May your joy and success continue." Feel this as a genuine wish. In doing so, you transform a moment of potential separation and suffering into a moment of connection and shared happiness. You step out of the lonely prison of envy and into the spacious, joyful field of our shared humanity. There is an old story of a man who spent his entire life searching for happiness. He heard tales of a fabled, hidden valley where everyone was perpetually joyful, and he made it his life's mission to find it. He climbed the highest mountains, crossed the most treacherous seas, and walked through bustling, foreign cities, always asking, "Where is the land of happiness?" He grew old and weary on his quest, and never found it. Finally, frail and disappointed, he made the long journey back to the small, humble home he had left behind as a young man. One evening, sitting in his own small garden, he watched the setting sun paint the sky in colors he had never noticed before. He heard the sweet, complex song of a bird in a tree he had planted himself. He felt the cool, gentle evening breeze on his weathered skin. And in that moment, a deep, quiet, and profound joy arose in his heart. He realized that the happiness he had been scouring the globe for had been right here, waiting for him all along. He had only needed to be still enough, to be present enough, to receive it. Our own hearts are like this garden. We do not need to journey to some distant land to find joy. We need only to quiet the noise of the past, to cease our striving for a different future, and to gently attend to the simple beauty that is trying to bloom in the soil of the present moment. As we become more skilled at this, we find our hearts have the capacity to hold both the sorrow of our past and the joy of our present. This ability to hold life's complexities, its light and its shadow, without being thrown into chaos, requires a final, profound skill, the wisdom of balance, the peace of equanimity. Having walked the path of healing, we have learned to see the past with wisdom, to feel our emotions with kindness, and to find joy in the simple fabric of the present. We have journeyed through the sublime states of loving kindness and compassion, learning to be a friend to ourselves and to others. But life, in its boundless nature, continues to present us with its inevitable rhythm of ups and downs. There is pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. Our ordinary, untrained heart is like a small boat on a vast ocean, tossed about by these waves, feeling elated one moment and despairing the next. Our peace is fragile, conditional, dependent on getting what we want and avoiding what we don't. The final and culminating stage of our heart's training is to learn how to be the ocean itself, vast and deep enough to hold all the waves without being disturbed. This is the practice of upekkha, or equanimity. Equanimity is perhaps the most misunderstood of the sublime states. It is often confused with indifference, apathy, or a cold, sterile detachment. It conjures images of someone who doesn't care, who is emotionally shut down and distant. But this is a profound misinterpretation. True equanimity is not a state of numbness. It is a state of profound, vibrant balance. It is not born of shutting the heart down, but of opening it so widely that it can hold the entire spectrum of human experience without being thrown off its center. It is a deep and unshakable peace that is not dependent on circumstances being pleasant. It is a quiet power that allows you to love fully without clinging, to feel sorrow deeply without being lost in despair, to experience joy without grasping and demanding more. Upekkha is not something we can force or pretend to have. It is not a matter of gritting our teeth and suppressing our reactions. Rather, it is the natural fruit that ripens on the tree of wisdom. It arises spontaneously as our understanding of the other great truths of reality deepens. Equanimity is rooted in our understanding of anicca, or impermanence. When you know, not just as an idea, but in your very bones, that everything changes. You stop trying to hold on so tightly. You can fully enjoy a moment of pleasure, a success, or a word of praise, knowing that it is a passing wave. You don't build your identity on it, because you know it will recede. And when a wave of pain, failure, or criticism arrives, you can meet it with less fear, knowing that it too is impermanent. You don't have to fight it so desperately, because you know it will not last forever. This deep trust in the flow of life allows the heart to relax its frantic grip. Equanimity is also rooted in our understanding of anatta, or no self. When we see that there is no solid, separate me at the center of our experience to be defended or aggrandized, we take life's events less personally. A word of criticism is no longer a devastating attack on the core of our being. It is simply unpleasant sound waves and another person's opinion arising from their own conditioning. A word of praise is no longer a reason for egoic inflation. It is simply a pleasant sound, a kind offering. When there is no self to be the target, the arrows of the world lose much of their sting. And finally, equanimity is rooted in our deep seeing of interconnectedness. When we understand that every event arises from a vast and complex web of causes and conditions far beyond our control, we can finally let go of the exhausting burden of trying to manage the universe. We can act with great love, skill, and intention, planting the best seeds we can, but we release our attachment to the specific outcomes. We do our part, and then we let the great web of life do its part. This surrender of control is a gateway to immense peace. The most powerful image for the quality of equanimity is that of a great mountain. Picture a majestic mountain, its base rooted deep within the earth, its peak reaching high into the sky. This mountain has sat there for millions of years, experiencing every imaginable kind of weather. The gentle morning sun, a warm and pleasant caress, shines upon its slopes. This is like the pleasure, praise, and good fortune we experience. The mountain simply receives the warmth. Then, fierce winds begin to howl, tearing at its rock face. This is like the criticism, blame, and harsh words we receive. The mountain remains still. A dark thunderstorm gathers, unleashing torrential rain and flashes of lightning. This is like the great sorrows of our lives. The grief, the loss, the trauma. The mountain is washed by the rain. It endures the storm, but it is not broken by it. It does not move. The storm passes, and a gentle snow begins to fall, blanketing the mountain in a quiet, pristine beauty. This is like the simple joys and moments of peace in our lives. Throughout all of this, the sun, the wind, the storm, the snow, the mountain's fundamental nature remains unchanged. It does not chase after the sun, nor does it run from the storm. It does not complain about the wind or cling to the snow. It sits in a state of profound, silent, unshakable dignity, allowing the ever-changing weather of the world to pass across its surface. It is fully intimate with all of it, yet it remains grounded, stable, and at peace. To cultivate equanimity is to cultivate this mountain-like quality in our own hearts. It is to find that place of inner stability that is not affected by the changing weather of our own thoughts, feelings, or life circumstances. When we are established in equanimity, the past is no longer a threat that can trigger us into reactivity. We can look upon our own history with a balanced and peaceful heart, seeing it as the landscape we have traveled, full of its own storms and sunshine, all of which have shaped us, but none of which define our ultimate nature. The future is no longer a source of anxiety because we are not attached to a specific outcome. We trust that we have the inner resources to meet whatever weather may come. This balanced heart is the ground for the purest and most powerful form of love. When we love with attachment, our love is tinged with fear, the fear of loss. We try to control the people we love, to make them behave in ways that will keep us feeling secure and happy. But when we love with equanimity, we can love with true freedom. We can wish for the happiness of others without needing anything from them in return. We can support them through their sorrows without being drowned by their pain. We can delight in their successes without feeling a pang of envy. It is a wise, spacious, and boundless love. This is the culmination of our inner journey, a heart that is free, balanced, and open. And when one has touched this kind of peace within oneself, a natural and beautiful impulse arises, the desire to turn outward and share that peace for the benefit of all beings. Having journeyed to the high plateau of equanimity, where the heart finds a deep and unshakable balance in the face of life's ever-changing weather, a profound shift in perspective can occur. From this vantage point, we can see not only the landscape of our own past with clarity and peace, but we can also see the vast panorama of the world around us. We see the struggles, the joys, and the sorrows of countless other beings. At this juncture, a choice arises. One could simply choose to reside in this hard-won personal peace, to enjoy the fruits of one's inner work in quiet solitude. The Buddhist path, however, especially in its Mahayana expression, offers a more expansive and deeply compassionate vision. It suggests that the ultimate purpose of our own healing is not merely to end our own suffering, but to turn back toward the world and offer our healing as a gift to others. This is the path of the Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is an awakening being, one who has made the courageous and beautiful vow to attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all living things. This is not a vow taken from a sense of grim duty or moral superiority. It arises organically from the depths of a heart that has been broken open by the truths of reality. It is born from the profound insight of interconnectedness, the realization that my liberation is ultimately inseparable from your liberation. It is the understanding that as long as one jewel in Indra's net is shrouded in darkness, the entire net is dimmed. The Bodhisattva's vow is the ultimate expression of love, a commitment to turn the entirety of one's life into an act of service. This may sound like a lofty, unattainable ideal, reserved for saints and sages in distant monasteries, but the spirit of the Bodhisattva is accessible to every single one of us. In fact, the very journey of healing the wounds of your own past is the perfect training ground for this path. Your deepest wounds become your greatest qualifications. Your scars become your credentials. Because you have known the suffocating darkness of your own long corridor, you have a unique and powerful empathy for others who are still lost in theirs. Because you have wrestled with the inner critic, you can recognize its harsh voice in another and offer a word of kindness. Because you have felt the burning heat of the coal of resentment, you know the profound relief of dropping it, and you can gently show others how they might open their own hands. Your personal pain, once the source of your greatest suffering, is alchemized into your most potent medicine, a medicine you can now offer to the world. The Bodhisattva path begins with a moment of recognition, a compassionate aha moment. As you move through the world with your newly opened eyes, you begin to see the hidden suffering everywhere. You see the cashier at the grocery store forcing a smile, but you can sense the exhaustion behind her eyes. You hear the angry driver honking his horn, and instead of feeling irritation, you sense the deep stress and powerlessness that fuels his rage. You see people chasing after wealth, fame, and pleasure, and you recognize the same deep thirst for happiness that once drove you, knowing that they are looking for it in places where it cannot be found. You see that the world is full of people still fighting the battles you have learned to lay down. They are still at war with their feelings, still believing the harsh stories of their minds, still carrying the heavy burdens of their past. Seeing this, the heart that has been softened by self-compassion naturally overflows. It is not a feeling of pity, which looks down from above. It is a feeling of profound empathy, of solidarity. You realize, they are just like me. A vow then forms, not necessarily in explicit words, but as a deep intention in the heart. May my own peace not be for me alone. May the wisdom I have gained serve to ease the confusion of others. May I be a source of comfort and a beacon of hope for those who are still lost in the storm. This is the dawning of the Bodhisattva's aspiration. There is a poignant and famous story in the Buddhist tradition that illustrates this transformation from personal grief to universal compassion. It is the story of a woman named Kisa Gotami. Her young son, the light of her life, fell ill and died. Kisa Gotami was consumed by a grief so powerful that it drove her to madness. Refusing to accept his death, she clasped the small, lifeless body to her chest and wandered from house to house, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man took pity on her and told her that while he had no medicine, she should go see the Buddha, for he was the great physician. Kisa Gotami ran to the Buddha, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for a cure. The Buddha looked upon her with immense compassion and gave her a strange prescription. He said, "There is only one medicine that can help you. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed. But there is one condition. The seed must come from a house where no one and no child, no parent, no spouse, no Savanthus ever died." Filled with a desperate hope, Kisa Gotami began her search. She went to the first house, and the family there gladly offered her a mustard seed. But when she asked if anyone in the house had ever died, they looked at her sadly and said, "The living are few, but the dead are many. We lost our beloved father just last year." She went to the next house, and the next, and the next. At every door, the story was the same. Every family had a mustard seed to offer, but every family had also known the profound sorrow of loss. She slowly came to realize that there was not a single house in the entire village untouched by death. As the sun began to set, the truth of her journey dawned upon her. Her grief, which had felt so intensely personal, so isolating, so uniquely unbearable, was in fact the universal inheritance of all human beings. Her sorrow was not a wall that separated her from others. It was the very bridge that connected her to the heart of everyone she had met. Her personal tragedy dissolved into the shared reality of the human condition. Her grief was no longer just for her son. It was for the inescapable truth of loss that touches every life. With this profound realization, she was able to let go of her desperate clinging, to accept the truth of her son's death, and to begin her own journey on the path of wisdom. Like Kisa Gotami, we often cling to our own wounds, as if they are unique tragedies. But the journey of healing is our journey from house to house, discovering that everyone carries their own sorrows, that every heart has its own story of loss. When we see this, our self-pity transforms into compassion. Our personal wound becomes a source of universal empathy. Living the Bodhisattva's vow in the modern world does not necessarily mean becoming a monk or a social activist. It can be practiced in the quiet moments of our everyday lives. It is about becoming a lighthouse, A lighthouse does not chase after ships in distress. Its primary function is to tend to its own light, to keep it burning brightly and steadily, so that it may serve as a reliable beacon for all who pass. By continuing to cultivate your own peace, your own mindfulness, your own equanimity, your very presence becomes a calming and healing force in the world. Your service can be as simple as the act of deep listening, offering another person the rare and precious gift of your full, non-judgmental attention as they navigate their own pain. It can be the courage to share your own story of healing, not to draw attention to yourself, but to offer a flicker of hope to someone who believes their own darkness is permanent. It is practiced in the words you choose, in the patience you offer a struggling colleague, in the kindness you show to a stranger. It is a life dedicated to adding more light, more peace, and more compassion to the great net of being. One moment, one interaction, one breath at a time. This is how the circle of healing is completed. For in the profound mathematics of the heart, we discover that the more peace and healing we offer to others, the more our own peace and healing deepens and expands. In saving others, we are truly saving ourselves. Having realized the profound truth that our own healing is a gift to the world, and having dedicated ourselves to the compassionate path of the Bodhisattva, we face a distinctly modern challenge. How do we protect the tender flame of our inner peace and wisdom in a world that seems designed to extinguish it? The inner work we have done is profound, but we now must learn to navigate an outer world that is louder, faster, and more distracting than at any other time in human history. We must learn to practice mindfulness in the heart of the digital age, to find the silence within the ceaseless noise. The digital landscape in which we live is, in many ways, the new wilderness for the mind. The threats are not lions and tigers, but they are just as dangerous to our inner well-being. They are the constant lure of distraction, the subtle poison of social comparison, and the overwhelming flood of information. The very architecture of our digital tools, our phones, our apps, our social media feeds, often engineered by very intelligent people, whose goal is to capture and hold our most precious resource, our attention. When our attention is perpetually hijacked, our connection to the present moment is severed, and the healing we have so carefully cultivated is put at risk. The goal, then, is not to reject technology entirely, but to approach it with the same mindful, conscious intention that we have learned to apply to our own thoughts and emotions. It is about becoming the master of our tools, rather than allowing our tools to become the master of us. Let us look honestly at how this digital environment can reopen old wounds and create new ones. Consider the phenomenon of social media. We scroll through a stream of carefully curated moments from other people's lives. The perfect vacation, the successful career move, the happy family portrait. Even though we know on an intellectual level that this is not the whole story, it is difficult not to compare this polished highlight reel to the messy, complex reality of our own inner life. For a heart that still carries the old bruise of, "I am not good enough," this constant comparison is like salt in the wound. It can trigger feelings of envy, inadequacy, loneliness, and despair, undermining the very self-compassion we have worked so hard to build. Consider the endless news cycle, optimized by algorithms to show us content that elicits a strong emotional reaction. Outrage, fear, and anxiety are powerful drivers of engagement. We are fed a constant diet of conflict, disaster, and injustice, which can keep our nervous systems in a state of chronic, low-grade agitation. We find ourselves constantly firing second arrows of judgment and despair about the state of the world, losing our hard-won equanimity in a sea of digital turmoil. And then there is the simple, relentless fragmentation of our attention. The constant buzzes, pings, and pop-ups from our devices are a form of perpetual interruption. Each notification, no matter how trivial, pulls us out of the present moment. It shatters our focus, creating a subtle but pervasive background hum of anxiety and obligation. Our minds never have a chance to truly settle, to rest in the spaciousness we find in our formal meditation practice. We end up living in a state of continuous partial attention, never fully here, because a part of our mind is always waiting for the next digital summons. To navigate this challenging landscape, we must learn to practice a new form of mindfulness, digital mindfulness. This begins with bringing intention to our actions. Before you pick up your phone, practice the sacred pause. Ask yourself, what is my intention right now? Am I picking this up for a specific, useful purpose, like contacting a friend or looking up information? Or am I reaching for it unconsciously, as a way to escape a feeling of boredom, loneliness, or anxiety? This simple inquiry brings consciousness to what is, for most of us, a deeply unconscious habit. It gives you a choice. We can also practice mindfulness while we are using our devices. As you scroll through a social media feed, notice what is happening in your body. Is your posture slumped? Is there tension in your jaw or shoulders? Are you holding your breath? And notice what is happening in your heart. Does reading this post make you feel more expansive and connected, or more contracted and inadequate? Does this video leave you feeling energized or drained? This awareness allows you to become a conscious curator of your digital diet. You can begin to choose content that nourishes your well-being and to release content that depletes it. One of the most powerful practices is to create sacred time and space, free from the intrusion of technology. This could mean making the first hour of your day a device-free period, allowing your mind to awaken gently into the present moment, rather than immediately diving into the anxieties of the world. It could mean making the dinner table a sanctuary for human connection, where phones are put away. It could mean leaving your phone in another room for a few hours each evening, giving your nervous system a much-needed rest and allowing you to reconnect with yourself, your loved ones, or a simple, non-digital activity like reading a book or listening to music. There is a beautiful way to reframe our relationship with the endless notifications that pester us. In Zen monasteries, a bell is periodically rung, not to call the monks to a task, but simply to serve as a bell of mindfulness. When the bell sounds, everyone stops what they are doing, and for the length of 1 or 3 conscious breaths, they come back home to the present moment. We can make a conscious decision to transform the ping of our phone into our own personal mindfulness bell. Imagine this. Your phone buzzes on the table. Your conditioned, Pavlovian response is to instantly grab it, to see who needs you, what has happened. But you have made a new intention. The buzz is now your mindfulness bell. So when it sounds, you pause. You do not reach for the phone. Instead, you use the sound as a cue to come back to yourself. You take one deep, conscious breath. You feel your feet on the floor. You notice the room you are in. You acknowledge the present moment. Then, from this place of centeredness, you can consciously choose whether you need to look at the phone right now or whether it can wait. In this way, you transform a source of constant distraction into a recurring opportunity for practice. You are hijacking the technology of interruption and turning it into a technology of presence. These do not need to be grand gestures. Weaving mindfulness into our digital lives is often about finding the small moments, the mindful gaps. It is about taking 3 conscious breaths before you open your email inbox. It is about pausing to stretch and look out the window for 1 minute in between long video calls. These micro practices break the hypnotic spell of the screen and repeatedly ground us back in the tangible, sensory world. They remind us that our life is not happening on the screen. It is happening right here, in this body, in this breath, in this precious, fleeting moment. By learning to live mindfully in the digital age, we protect our inner peace and ensure that we can continue to be that steady, unshaken lighthouse of compassion for ourselves and for the world. We have traveled a great distance on this inner journey, from the dark corridors of the past to the open, spacious sky of the present moment. We have gathered precious tools, the anchor of the breath, the wisdom of observation, the compassion of a healing heart, and the freedom of forgiveness. We have even learned to apply these ancient principles to the unique challenges of our modern digital world. Now, we arrive at the most practical and vital question of all. How do we make this a way of life? How do we ensure that these profound insights are not just a temporary state, but become the very foundation upon which we build our days? The answer lies in patiently and persistently sowing the seeds of peace, cultivating a lifestyle where mindfulness is not something you do, but something you are. The idea of building a new lifestyle can feel daunting, as if we must add another complex set of tasks to our already busy schedules. It is here that we must remember the principle of starting small. The goal is not to become a perfect, full-time meditator overnight. The mind, like a muscle, grows stronger through consistency, not through occasional, heroic efforts. 5 minutes of focused, wholehearted meditation every single day is infinitely more powerful and transformative than a single hour-long session once a month. The daily repetition begins to carve new neural pathways in the brain, making mindfulness a more natural and accessible state. The all-or-nothing mindset, the feeling that if I can't do it for 30 minutes, it's not worth doing, is a trap of the inner critic. Let it go. Give yourself the gift of a small, achievable beginning. To make this daily practice stick, it is wise to anchor it to a habit that is already firmly established in your routine. This is sometimes called habit stacking. Your existing habit, like brushing your teeth, having your first cup of coffee, or getting into bed at night, becomes the anchor for your new mindfulness practice. You make a simple rule for yourself. Right after I finish my morning coffee, I will sit and meditate for 5 minutes. By linking the new, desired behavior to an old automatic one, you don't have to rely on willpower or memory. The old habit itself becomes the reminder, the gentle chime calling you to your cushion or your chair. While this formal sitting practice is the bedrock of our training, the time when we specifically go to the gym for the mind, the true art of a mindful lifestyle is in weaving this same quality of awareness into the ordinary moments of our day. This is the informal practice. It is about waking up to our lives, moment by moment. You can start with mindful eating. For most of us, eating is a mechanical and unconscious act. We eat while watching a screen, while working, while lost in thought. Choose just one meal a day, or even just the first 3 bites of a meal to practice with. Before you eat, take a moment to look at your food. Consider all the interconnected causes and conditions that brought it to your plate. The sun, the rain, the earth, the farmers, the truck drivers. This cultivates gratitude. As you take a bite, chew slowly. Notice the explosion of tastes and textures in your mouth. Notice the intention to swallow. When you eat in this way, you not only enjoy your food more, but you are also practicing being fully present. You can practice mindful walking as you walk from your car to your office, or simply to the next room. Bring your attention to the physical sensations of walking. Feel the pressure of your feet on the ground, the way your weight shifts from heel to toe, the subtle movements of your legs and arms. You are not trying to get anywhere in particular, mentally. You are simply being with the experience of walking. This transforms a mundane, transitional moment into an opportunity for grounded, embodied presence. You can practice mindful listening. The next time you are in a conversation with someone, make the intention to offer them the gift of your full attention. Resist the urge to plan your response while they are speaking. Don't just hear their words. Listen to the feeling and the meaning behind them. Notice their tone of voice, their body language. When you listen in this way, you create a space of genuine connection, and you may be surprised by how much more you hear. Any routine task can become a meditation. Washing the dishes can be a practice of feeling the warmth of the water on your hands, seeing the iridescence of the soap bubbles, hearing the sound of the plates clinking. Driving can be a practice of noticing the tension in your hands on the steering wheel and consciously softening it. The goal is to dismantle the artificial wall between meditation time and the rest of life. Every moment is an opportunity to come home to yourself. Think of your mind as a garden. Left untended, weeds of negative thinking, anxious planning, and painful rumination will naturally grow and take over. Your formal, daily meditation practice is like the essential act of watering the garden. It is a dedicated, focused period of providing the fundamental nourishment of your full attention. Without this regular watering, nothing can flourish. Your informal practices throughout the day are like the ongoing, gentle tending of the garden. It is the act of pulling a weed of self-criticism as soon as you notice it. It is pausing to appreciate the beauty of a single flower, a moment of joy. It is turning a plant toward the Sunan act of kindness. And the self-compassion we have cultivated is the rich fertilizer that nourishes the soil itself, making it possible for beautiful qualities like wisdom, peace, and love to grow strong. A truly beautiful garden is not the result of one frantic day of work. It is the result of small, consistent, and loving acts of care, day in and day out. So it is with a peaceful mind. Finally, remember that while this is a deeply personal journey, you do not have to walk it alone. In Buddhism, the community of fellow practitioners is called the Sangha, and it is considered one of the three jewels, as precious as the Buddha himself and the teachings. Find a friend to share your practice with. Join a local or online meditation group. The simple act of sharing your challenges and your small victories with others who understand the path can provide immense encouragement and support. It reminds us that our struggles are not unique, and our aspirations for peace are shared. Building a mindful lifestyle is not about achieving a perfect state of perpetual calm. It is not about adding more pressure to your life. It is a gentle, compassionate process of subtraction, of letting go of the habits of distraction and reactivity that cause you pain. It is a commitment to persistence over perfection, a promise to keep showing up for yourself, day after day. It is the simple, profound, and life-altering choice to be present for the unfolding of your own precious life. As we commit to a mindful lifestyle, sowing seeds of peace in our daily lives, we may begin to feel a sense of hope and stability we haven't felt in years. The past begins to lose its sharp edges, and the present moment reveals its quiet beauty. It is easy to believe at this stage that the work is done, that we have been fixed or cured, and that the rest of the journey will be a smooth, upward climb into perpetual peace. But this is a beautiful and dangerous illusion. The path of healing and awakening is not a straight line from a broken past to a perfect future. It is a spiral. We will inevitably circle back to our deepest wounds, our most ingrained patterns. The great challenge, and the source of our deepest growth, lies in how we meet these moments of recurrence. It is crucial to understand that a setback is not a failure. When an old ghost from the past rises again a sudden wave of grief, a flare-up of anger, a deep dive into an old story of shame. Your inner critic is often the first to speak. It says, "See, nothing has changed. All that practice was for nothing. You're right back where you started." This voice of despair is the single greatest threat to our continued healing. We must meet it with a firm but gentle truth. Healing is not linear, and you are not back where you started. You are revisiting an old place, but you are returning with new eyes, a stronger heart, and a wealth of tools you did not possess before. Let us explore why these old patterns return. Our brains have been shaped by a lifetime of experience. The neural pathways of our old reactive habits, the tendency to ruminate, to worry, to lash out, to shut down, are like deep canyons carved into a landscape over millennia. They are the default routes for the river of our consciousness. The new, mindful pathways we have been cultivating are like small, freshly cleared trails. They are beautiful and lead to wonderful places, but it requires conscious intention to walk them. When we are tired, stressed, sick, or blindsided by an unexpected life event, our energy is low. In these moments, it is natural for the river of our mind to flow back into the old, deep, familiar canyon of suffering. It is not a moral failing. It is a matter of neurological gravity. Furthermore, life will continue to be life. It will present us with new challenges that resonate with our old wounds in surprising ways. A new relationship might feel safe and wonderful, but a moment of miscommunication could trigger the raw, primal fear of abandonment left over from a childhood trauma. A project at work might be going well, but a piece of mild criticism could activate the deep-seated feeling of inadequacy instilled in us long ago. These are not signs that we are broken. They are simply life presenting us with a new, more advanced curriculum. We have passed the introductory courses. Now we are being tested on our ability to apply our skills in more complex scenarios. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, it seems impossible. You wobble, you struggle to find your balance, you fall down, and you scrape your knees. These are the early days of your practice, when every moment can feel like a struggle. Then, with persistence, you have a breakthrough. You find your balance, and for a few exhilarating feet, you are riding. You feel a sense of mastery and joy. This is like the first time you successfully sit through a difficult emotion or see through a painful story. But does learning to ride a bike mean you will never fall again? Of course not. Even an experienced cyclist, if they hit an unexpected patch of sand or get distracted for a moment, can find themselves on the ground. Here is the crucial difference. When the experienced cyclist falls, what is their inner response? They do not throw the bicycle down in disgust and declare, "I've failed. I've forgotten how to ride. All those years of practice were a waste. I'm back at square one." This would be absurd. They know that falling is simply a part of riding. Their response is practical and compassionate. They check themselves for injuries. They check the bike for damage. They reflect for a moment on what caused the fall. I need to pay more attention when the road is wet. And then, they dust themselves off, get back on the bike, and continue their journey, now with a little more wisdom and humility than before. This is precisely how we must learn to treat our own moments of falling back into old patterns. A relapse into an old habit of anger or despair does not erase all your progress. It does not mean you have unlearned mindfulness. It is simply a fall. It is a moment of forgetting. Your practice is not to create a life where you never fall, but to cultivate the resilience, wisdom, and self-compassion to get back up with less judgment and more kindness each and every time. So, what do we do in the moment we realize we have fallen? What is the compassionate response when you wake up and find yourself completely submerged in a painful old story, having been lost in it for an hour, a day, or even a week. First, recognize the fall with as much neutrality as you can muster. The moment of realizing I am lost is, itself, a moment of profound mindfulness. Instead of layering on a second arrow of judgment like, I can't believe I'm doing this again, try a simple, gentle acknowledgement. Ah, I see. The old pattern of self-blame is here. I have been lost. Okay. Second, apply the emergency medicine of self-compassion immediately. Before you try to fix or change anything, offer yourself kindness. Place a hand on your heart. Feel its warmth. Say to yourself, this is really hard. Of course this is here. This is a deep and familiar wound. It's okay. I am here with you now. You are soothing the scraped knee of your heart before you try to get back on the bike. Third, remember your tools. You are not helpless. You are not the beginner you once were. You can return to the anchor of your breath to find your center. You can use the rain practice to be with the difficult emotions that are present. You can look at the catastrophic thoughts and recognize them as clouds, not the sky. The recurrence is a real-world opportunity to use the skills you have been training in a moment when they matter most. It is the final exam that shows you how much you have truly learned. As you practice meeting these recurrences with this kind of gentle fortitude, your relationship with your old patterns begins to change. Instead of seeing them as monstrous enemies to be vanquished, you can begin to see them with a strange kind of familiarity, almost as troubled old friends who occasionally show up at your door. When the old friend of anxiety arrives, heart pounding and hands trembling, you don't have to slam the door in its face or let it take over your house. You can open the door and say, "Ah, hello anxiety. I know you. I recognize you. You have come because some part of me is feeling threatened. Thank you for trying to protect me. Come in. You can sit here for a while, but I am not going to serve you tea. I am going to stay with my breath." This changes the entire dynamic from one of fearful, adversarial conflict to one of wise, compassionate mastery. The path of healing and growth is a spiral. We will continue to circle the core themes of our lives, but with each turn, we see them from a higher vantage point, with more light, more space, and a greater capacity for love. The goal is not to arrive at a place where the old wounds never ache. The goal is to become the person who, when the ache comes, knows how to meet it with the unwavering tenderness of a wise and loving friend. This resilient and compassionate presence, patiently cultivated over a lifetime, is the very essence of true and lasting freedom. We have come to the end of a long and profound path. We began in the dim corridors of the past, haunted by ghosts and weighed down by chains. We journeyed through the great truths of existence, learning to see our suffering, our impermanence, and the very nature of our own minds. We gathered the tools of mindfulness, compassion, forgiveness, and wisdom. We learned to tend our inner garden and to navigate the challenges of the outer world. And now, we arrive at the destination of this journey. A destination which, paradoxically, is not a place at all, but a new way of being in the place we have always been. This is the state of a liberated consciousness, a life no longer haunted by the past. What does it mean to be free? It is essential to understand that this freedom is not a magical state where the past is erased and life becomes devoid of all difficulty. The memories of what happened will still exist. The scars will still be there. The world will still present its challenges, its sorrows, and its unexpected turns. The freedom we have cultivated is not a freedom from the reality of life, but a freedom within the reality of life. It is a fundamental transformation in our relationship to our own minds and to the passage of time. Imagine, one last time, that your mind is the vast open sky. In the past, you believed you were the clouds. When a dark storm cloud of a painful memory appeared, you became the storm. You were tossed about by its winds, drenched in its rain, and struck by its lightning. The freedom we speak of now is the deep, abiding, experiential knowing that you are the sky. A storm cloud may drift into view. You can see it clearly. You can acknowledge its darkness, its energy, its electricity, but you no longer fuse with it. You no longer believe it is you. You feel its coolness. You see its shadow, but you remain in the vast, peaceful, untouchable embrace of your own sky-like awareness. You have the space to watch the cloud arrive, to watch it stay for a while, and to watch it inevitably dissolve and pass on. The thought or memory no longer has the power to hijack your reality. It is simply weather, and you are the sky that holds all weather. This freedom is experienced as a profound sense of non-reactivity. The emotional buttons that your past installed with such care have now been gently, patiently, and compassionately disconnected. A situation arises that would have once sent you into a spiral of anger or a pit of despair, but now you can meet it with the spacious balance of equanimity. You feel the initial spark of the old reaction, but it is like a spark that lands on damp ground instead of a pile of dry tinder. It fizzes out before it can become a wildfire. In the space that this creates, you have access to your full wisdom, your full compassion, your full creativity. You are free to choose your response, rather than being condemned to repeat your reaction. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this liberation. Imagine a bird that has been born and raised in a small, ornate cage. For this bird, the cage is the entire world. The metal bars are the unquestioned limits of its reality. The small perch and the food dish are the predictable comforts of its existence. The bird knows nothing else. This cage is the past that has shaped us, with its limiting beliefs, its painful memories, and its conditioned fears. We have believed this cage to be the whole of who we are. Our journey of healing, of mindfulness and compassion, is like a kind hand quietly reaching down and opening the door of the cage. At first, the bird is terrified. The vast, open space outside is unfamiliar and threatening. The safety of the known prison is preferable to the uncertainty of an unknown freedom. For a long time, the bird may just hop to the open door and then retreat back to the familiarity of its perch. These are our moments of recurrence, our falls from the bicycle. But one day, the bird finds the courage to take a small, tentative flight. It flies to a nearby branch, heart pounding, and then maybe back to the cage. But something has irrevocably changed. It has had a taste of the sky. It has felt the wind in its wings. With growing confidence, it takes longer and longer flights, exploring the boundless blue that surrounds it. This is the state of a liberated mind. The cage is still there. The past, as a factual history, still exists. The bird can even choose to return to the cage to rest if it wishes. But it is no longer a prisoner. It knows with every fiber of its being that it is not the cage. Its true nature is the freedom of the sky. The cage has lost all of its power. So it is with us. Our past is the cage. We have learned, through our practice, to open the door. And we have discovered that our true nature is not the confinement of our history, but the boundless, spacious awareness that can fly free. A mind that lives in this freedom is characterized by certain beautiful qualities. There is a sense of openness and curiosity. Instead of meeting the world through the defensive, fearful filter of past hurts, you can meet each new moment, each new person, with a beginner's mind, interested in what is actually here, rather than what you are afraid might happen. There is a deep sense of authenticity. You are no longer performing a role that your wounds have assigned to you, the people pleaser, the cynic, the victim. You are free to act and speak from the genuine wisdom of your own heart. And there is a spontaneous upwelling of compassion. Because you are no longer consumed by your own inner drama, you have so much attention and love available to offer the world. You see the suffering of others not as a burden, but as a call to your own open heart. This is the ultimate gift of our long journey. It is a peace that is not dependent on having a perfect life, a peace that cannot be given to you, and that no one can take away. It is the peace that comes from discovering your own indestructible nature. It is the quiet, radiant confidence of a heart that has come home to itself. This freedom is not an endpoint to be reached, but a way of living to be embodied, moment by moment, breath by breath, for the rest of our precious lives. We began our journey together in a long, dark corridor, a place where the doors to the past perpetually creaked open, pulling us into old rooms of pain, regret, and sorrow. We felt the profound weight of these ghosts, the way they shaped our present and clouded our future. On this path, we have brought the gentle light of awareness into that corridor. We started by bravely naming the nature of our dis-ease, the universal truth of dukkha. We discovered the liberating secret of anicca, the great river of impermanence that shows us that the past is truly gone and that this present moment, too, shall pass. We looked deeply into the nature of our own identity and saw through the illusion of a solid, permanently wounded self, finding freedom in the truth of anatta. We were not left alone with these profound insights. We were given tools. We found the anchor of the breath, a faithful friend waiting for us in the sanctuary of the present moment. We learned to watch our thoughts as clouds, not as commands. We were taught to befriend our most difficult emotions, holding them with the tenderness of a loving parent. We explored the difficult and beautiful landscapes of forgiveness and compassion, learning to drop the hot coal of resentment and to soothe our own hearts. We rewrote our stories, not as tragedies of a broken past, but as epics of resilience and wisdom, transforming the mud of our suffering into a blooming lotus. We learned to be the sky, not the storm, the mountain, not the weather, the bird released from its cage. If there is one essential truth to carry with you from this entire journey, let it be this: the past has no power over you. It does not exist. It is a phantom, a collection of memories and stories that are arising as thoughts, right now, in the present moment. Its only power is the power that you give to it with your own attention and belief. Peace is not found by winning a war with your history. It is found by laying down your arms and realizing the war is with a shadow. The freedom you seek is not in a different past, but in a different relationship with the present. You have everything you need to continue this journey. The key to your own liberation is not held by anyone else. It is in your own hand, in your own heart, in your own awareness. You are the one who can choose to return to the breath. You are the one who can offer yourself kindness when an old wound aches. You are the one who can choose to see the story differently. Do not be discouraged by the spiral of healing, by the days you may fall. Simply remember how to get back up with more compassion than you had before. Each breath is a new beginning, a fresh opportunity to come home. Come home to the quiet peace of this moment. Come home to the boundless, spacious freedom that is, and always has been, your truest nature.